Good evening. The regular meeting of the Independent School District 279 School Board is called to order at 6:02 p.m. on April 25th, 2023. This regular school board business meeting of the Osseo School Board is being conducted in the boardroom of the Educational Service Center. The meeting can be monitored electronically by streaming online from the district website. An archived recording of tonight's meeting will also be available on the district website. Seated in front of you from my left to your right, and your right, sorry, my left and your right, is Director Sarah Mitchell, Director Thomas Brooks, Director Tanya Simons, myself, Jackie Mosqueda Jones, Director Heather Douglas, and Director Tamara Grady. Also present in the boardroom is Superintendent Corey McIntyre and our student school board representatives. Mawata Kamara from Park Center Senior, Priya Moa from 279 Online, Linnea Neldler from Osseo Senior, and Timur Yusnef from Maple Grove Senior. Cabinet members Laurel Anderson, Brian Severson Hall, Anthony Paternos, Steve Flisk are also present, and I also see Dr. Kim Heil, Dr. Brian Bass, and Amy Janicek back there also with us. Thank you for coming. Those of you who can, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board members, I'm making a motion to amend the agenda to move action item 11C, Building a Better Future Phase 2, Superintendent's recommendation to authorize a special election, to be changed to a presentation item number 9A, a non-action item on the agenda in the presentation section of the agenda, and to make current item 9, monitoring report, strategic direction B initiatives, to be item 9B in the presentation section. Do I have a second on that motion?
I second the motion.
All right, is there any discussion on that?
What's the reason for the motion?
I am making this motion so that the board is able to make the best decision possible about sending a board referendum to the voters. There's a lot of pieces to this bond referendum, and we want to make sure that our questions and concerns are fully addressed before bringing it to a vote. As a board, it is our duty to make sure that we are doing what is right for our scholars and our community. This gives us a little more time to explore all of the information. That's what I'm doing.
I'm ready to vote and hear the presentation tonight. I don't need any more time, but thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Do you have anything, Director Douglas? Questions or comments or no? Okay.
So we had our work session last week or just last week, where we were presented with a significant amount of information, and we have additional information tonight too. So I do think that I support that it's prudent to consider that, though certainly if there's a majority of board members who feel that they would like to vote tonight, I think the members can express that, but I do think there's been a lot of information. I want to make sure that everybody has had time to properly talk with the staff members, to talk with cabinet, and to digest all of the information.
I would also be prepared to vote today, but given the number of questions and concerns I do have, I would be open to giving staff more time to address it.
Any other discussion?
I just think
on that?
in the interest of transparency, we've gone through the normal process so far, and I think we're ready to move on with that.
I agree, and in the interest of transparency, I have been dealing with a lot of personal issues, and we have had quite a bit of information coming, and I feel like another couple of weeks would help make it a more solidified decision. But if the board, obviously if the board wants to vote tonight, I am prepared to make that vote as well. So in that interest, any other discussion, or should we put it to a vote on whether or not to amend the agenda?
I'm in favor of amending the agenda. I believe new information has come forward. Not all questions have been answered, and I don't think we've had full transparency in some ways. So I would like to see that brought forward. I'd also like to see more engagement and cooperation and participation from my fellow colleagues.
I agree with Director Douglas, and I think that it is, just with the scope and being such a large decision, I think it's wise to wait a little more time so that we can all process all the information and move forward with transparency with all of our stakeholders.
I just want to say that I believe all the information has been out, available to the public. It's just such a wealth of information that I don't believe that transparency is necessarily the issue. The issue is there's just such a wealth of information to wade through that I would like a little more time. So with that, any?
I was going to add, I agree with Chair Mosqueda Jones. I think this has been a process that we've been discussing at multiple board meetings. There's been high transparency. The last work session, there were a number of questions and not all board members were able to participate. So I think in the interest of having a good, robust discussion and having processed all that data, I think it's wise, it's just 2 weeks that we have that little bit more time for everybody.
So, all discussion having made with a second, I'm calling for a vote on whether to amend the agenda as so moved. Should we roll call vote, or? Let's roll call vote.
Director Mosqueda Jones.
Aye.
Director Douglas.
Aye.
Director Grady.
Nay.
Director Mitchell.
Aye.
Director Brooks.
Nay.
Director Simons.
Aye.
It's 4-2, the vote passes.
Okay, in that respect, then we have an amended agenda by 4-2 vote, and I need a motion to accept the agenda as revised.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 6-0. Our next standing agenda item is one of our favorite agenda items, is recognitions. We have 3 recognitions here this evening. Board members, Superintendent McIntyre, and the student school board representatives, will you please join me to stand in front of the board dais so we can call those recognitions up. Thank you. All right, first to be recognized this evening is, are you ready? The 2023 Minnesota State Champions Park Center Competitive Cheer Squad. Yeah! Okay. I'm looking for head coach Erica Marsh to come to the podium. And
She's gonna talk to them.
all right, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't have your name written down here.
Malaysia Hammond.
Malaysia?
Hammond.
Hammond, Malaysia Hammond will be introducing our beautiful scholars today.
Good evening, everyone. We represent the Park Center competition cheer team led by head coach Erica, Coach Sophie, and myself, Coach Mel. This is Park Center history in the making. This is our first time ever winning state back-to-back. So congrats to them. And this is also our second year placing top 5 in the nation. They were, thank you. They got 4th and only 0.9 points away from first. It was that close. So they got some fire in them this year. We just want to say we are very proud of you guys. They're very well disciplined and have so much love for the team and for the sport. So great job, girls. We'll now call your name for your certificate. Kylie Berg.
I'm going to interrupt for just 1 second. Make sure you come around and give us all, high fives or shakers.
Hanaya Dabney. Ramaya Green. Queen Naima Pure Earth. Mina Beatty. Naima Smith. Agina Vang. Azaria Taylor. Audria Adams. Danielle Wynn. Rebecca Moreno. Jazzy Griffin. Helena Fung. Nina Ombonkat. Dora Songthase. Shalom Adel. Patricia Okafor. We're missing one, but our lovely Andrea Bungsgaard. Thank you. Oh, wait, come back. We have to do a picture. Oh, yeah. I'll grab the girls, Andrea. That makes sense. Wait, are we going to do a picture in here?
Yes, if the cheer squad could please come back to the dais, we're gonna take a group picture. Congratulations. While the cheer squad is making their way out, our next recognition is Osseo Senior High's Business Professionals of America. Several scholars placed third at state and national qualifier. BPA advisor Tanmai Kao, will you please come to the podium for introductions?
Good evening, everyone. Business Professionals of America is a student organization for students pursuing careers in business management, information technology, finance, office administration, health administration, and other related fields. The students being recognized tonight have competed at the regional and state level to earn their spot at nationals, where they will compete across the United States with students in Puerto Rico as well. Please join me in congratulating Jessica Ina Rumen, Wang Lei, Wang Lei, Mercy Yamao, Savina Senvilai, Anuolu Sheifunmi, George. Congratulations to these scholars on a job well done, and wish them best of luck tomorrow as we head to nationals.
Sure. This will be easier, Kay.
Do you want to come up and take your picture?
We do have one more recognition tonight, and it is the 2023 Minnesota State High School League's second place finishers at the state tournament, Park Center Senior High boys basketball team. Your first place in our eyes. Head coach James Ware, please introduce us to your team.
Thank you for having us. Our entire team is not here. Many of them are off playing, continuing to play and practice. We kind of go all year round. No, it's fine. We were here 1 year ago with our cheerleaders, sharing a state championship, and they cheered us on to victory. Couple people that I would like to thank that are also here today, starting with Principal Miller-Sink. Principal Miller-Sink, for many years, has been unofficially our team mom, during the day, but also in the evening. So, Heather, thank you. The next person, and he's also here, Mr. John Hedstrom, who hired me into the position, I don't know, eight or 9 years ago. He's been a tremendous help. People I forgot to mention, and really I could just go like top to bottom through Park Center High School, from all the assistant principals to administrators, to deans, to counselors, to social workers. We had a rough start to the year. Some of you know about that. Won't focus on the negative today. We'll focus on the positive, which is our team and a successful season. We'll hold applause till the end. I am going to say everyone's name. First, C.J. O'Hara, who was a senior, Aiden Mayman, Joe Burgess, Jackson Folks, Kashmir Chavis, Tete Tuoso, Jacob Grainer, J.J. Ware, who is here, Shang Ring, Josh Diggs, Nigel Caldwell, Caden Cook, the last of the Cook brothers. A few more names here. Xavier Freelix also is here. And Cullen O'Rourke. And with that, I'm super proud of our team. It means a lot to us to represent Park Center, the entire city of Brooklyn Park, and we try to do it with as much class as possible while competing as hard as we possibly can and trying to make a difference. So everyone, thank you.
Principal Heather Sink-Miller, Miller Sink, and come on up.
I'm really tall, right?
Slide in, slide in.
Just make sure you're kind of in between. Come on. I was gonna say, everybody needs to stand in front of them. Are you window so you're good? That's right. Look what color she wore tonight. She's like, she's learning as a cheerleader. I was a cheerleader. Smile.
See if that works. Oh, okay. Okay.
I think that's my favorite part of the meeting.
Okay, let me try that again.
All right, here we go. Our next agenda item is student school board representatives reports. Linnea, you're up first today.
I'll try again later.
Keep going then.
Cool. My name is Linnea Neldner. I'm the Osseo Senior High School Board representative. And to start things off, we finished our ACTs on April 18th. So, yay! I did not. It was not me. It was the juniors. But yeah, so good to them. I got a day off. That was kind of nice. We also had our unified basketball game. That was April 2nd, 20th. My bad. We took second though. We worked very hard. There was a lot of support on that, and it was really great to see everyone show up and support these players who are a very crucial part of our school. So that was really nice to see. We had the Day of Silence, which was April 14th, which if you don't know what the Day of Silence is, that's where students, staff members can take the option to stay silent to represent their support of any LGBTQ students who have been bullied or experienced harassment, because they definitely have a lot bigger percentage to feel that way because of their sexuality or their orientation. In track and field, we've had the Armstrong meet where the girls won, so kudos to us. I earned us 1 point for hurdles. That was really nice. But we got 112 points, which was really nice, and then the boys took second, and they got 132 points, so that was pretty nice. Our prom is coming up. I'm very excited. That'll be May 13th, and we have an enchanted garden as our theme, so very exciting for that. Thank you. Anyway, we also have advanced placement testing, which is taking place. And we have our Addams Family play that is going on, and you can still see it on the 27th, the 28th, and the 29th. It's all at 7 o'clock. It's really good. You should come see it. Also, if you do not know, Kenny Green is a person who works at my school. He is an educational support professional, and he has been a very big part of my life. He is one of the coaches for cross country and for track and field, and he does a lot of behind the scenes at our school, and his job is very important to him and important to everyone else. And I think that all the educational support professionals should be paid equally and treated equally as well, because of their important. Thank you.
Thanks, Linnea. Timur, will you please share your report?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Timur Yusinov, and I am the student representative for Maple Grove Senior High School. And just like Linnea said, a lot of the juniors also took the ACT last week. And while that's also in the past for me, thankfully, I also had a really nice day off as well. We also have AP tests coming up for the 1st of May, which is a highly stressful time. A lot of people are studying, I'm studying, and a lot of our seniors, everyone is generally just focused on that. It's a pretty stressful time when it comes to academics. A lot of the tests are around this time. And then college decisions are being finalized, and seniors are starting to show their pride for where they're going to go next year, and a lot of us have worn our shirts around our school, and we get to see where everyone's going, and it's really nice. And we also have our prom, which is starting this Saturday. And unlike Osseo Senior High's of Enchanted Garden, we have Enchanted Forest. So slightly different, but yeah, we came up with it first, don't worry.
We had it last year. We did it last year.
Cut the cameras. But yeah, so after last meeting, I also got a call. The robotics team did not appreciate a little joke I made about the robot, so I'm here to make things right. So in the last tournament in Iowa, the robot actually worked perfectly and everything went as expected. There were very few faults and very few casualties, I could say. And our outreach department is doing a great job with reaching out to hundreds of kids within the district with STEM activities and teaching them about STEM and how robots, machines, and just general science works and what opportunities they can have. And now within the coming weeks, we're seeing to find new leaders for the next year. And then for speech and debate, we have 4 speech qualifiers for state, which is coming right up. The lacrosse season started, and it is so far going pretty great for the athletes. And the Maple Grove Senior High Crimson Cabinet is providing coffee day to help our students learn and get through the day. And applications for new members are coming up, which is going to help students be a part of school spirit and really engage with our school more. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you. Mawada, will you please share your report?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I had a lot to share, but we've kind of experienced it already with our sport teams coming and being celebrated. But as we count down the days of, I think it's only 30 more days. I might be wrong, but I've been counting it down. But firstly, I wanted to shout out all the teachers and students for, this is a pretty stressful time. As we are preparing to take tests, I myself am a junior, and I was pretty stressed last week, it was last week. I tried to put it behind me, but I had to take the ACTs. It wasn't fun, but yeah. Also, I don't have much to share with the about our school because it's kind of been, everyone's just kind of been busy with testing and everything, but we do have new construction going around our school with the new additions of our locker rooms that will be done in October. Sadly, I'm a fall sport, so I won't get to use it, but yeah. And then finally, I wanted to mention that our CRC did make shirts for all the seniors that were interested in showing their pride in their post-secondary options. No, I lied. After high school options. And then, sorry, I'm a little nervous. My old principal is sitting right there. Miss Monette, hi. And Miss Hadlack. I'm shy. But other than that, yeah, it's just we've kind of been laying low, and yeah, that's all.
Priya, your turn.
Excuse me. Hello. My name is Priya, and I am the student board representative for the 279 online school. And just like Moada here, we recently had our testing for the ACT. It was very long, very stressful, and then students are also preparing for the MCA this week alongside with midterms grade. There wasn't really much going on because there was a bunch of testing exams, but I do want to talk a little bit about the GSA Club. The GSA Club have been doing so much for their community and the school. The GSA Club is a club that welcomes anyone who is a part of the LGBTQIA community, and students who aren't part of the community still has the opportunity to engage and join the club. The GSA Club has been focusing on including students' experience with online and offering students who are part of the community or identify as part of the community an opportunity to provide feedback for our school. The survey that was taken was about the experience and engagement of the 279 online. Students were able to share their opinions, experience, and stories. The 279 online, it will continue to build on inclusivity with students and teachers. And that is all I have for today. Thank you.
Our student representatives review the board meeting packet in advance and are prepared to answer questions from board members on issues to seek student input related to agenda items for this evening's meeting. Board members, do you have agenda items for which you'd like student input?
I do. I'm sure you're aware that we have information regarding a potential bond referendum coming up in our packets. It's pretty lengthy and we've discussed it at many meetings, but I'm just curious what input you have and how you think that the facilities improvements will impact your school sites and the students in your community.
Okay, we went over this today earlier, but I do think, sadly, I'm kind of sad that I won't get to experience it because it is pretty good updates to the schools. But it's pretty exciting to know that, like, the younger generation, I have a younger brother and I have a lot of younger cousins. It's really exciting to see that that's what they're going to get to experience with school. And there's so many opportunities coming up, which I am sad I didn't get to experience, but it's really good knowing that they will get to partake in that as well.
I do also have younger siblings within the district, and I'm very excited for them. I believe that when you are surrounded by a better environment, you learn better, you learn easier. So I'm very supportive of this, and I'm very excited to see what is coming up or what's new built. So yeah.
I also have younger siblings, so I am very hopeful and excited to see what comes out of it, seeing as I'm going off to college next year. But it's nice because it's not about me, it's about them kind of thing. So you get to see what they get to do, and hopefully it motivates them to be better. So I'm very happy for what we're doing.
I too, unsurprisingly, have younger siblings, and I'm also very excited for them. I think this is very promising, and this is just like one of the beginning stages, and I think this is a really great opportunity for all of them, not just for general education, but it also really expands other ways to learn and just really gives them a chance to learn better and succeed in more ways. And I also think that generally Maple Grove is also just a growing school in general. There's a high population of students, and it's really needed to have this expansion within schools because we need to be able to accommodate all of our students, and having a better learning space is what we need.
Thank you. I have one more question. What fears or concerns do you have should the bond referendum not move forward or not pass?
I could definitely say that it's been talked about before that Maple Grove does have already excess students. There are a lot of students already above the limit, and that we are a very packed and growing school, and that having these expansions is very important, especially to accommodate, especially with the new additional homes that are joining Maple Grove, and the new influx of students are expected to come with that. So I think it's very important, but if this were not to pass, I wonder what would happen with this issue.
I agree with him. That's
Yes.
very, yeah. We all agree with Tim. I think he made a really good point, and possibly knowing that this bill could have not been passed, it kind of just draws back to the wonders, like, you know, with everybody like expanding, a lot of more kids, you know, going with different options with school now, just to see like how that would affect like communities and such. And I think it's a really good opportunity that the district has got into this and try to find a resolution. And it's also really good that, you know, the communities are coming out and voting and making sure their voices are heard as well.
Actually, I have one more question. I'm sorry. Is that okay? Should the bond referendum not pass or not move forward, there's a potential that we could have to eliminate up to 300 staff members. How do you think that would impact your school communities?
I'll go first since I'm right here. I think that will like really heavily impact my community because I go to Park Center, and a lot of the students do need extra support when it comes to, you know, with their home lives and stuff. A lot of people feel like school is their way of, you know, being safe, and I feel like eliminating that number of teachers will really put a toll in our community because a lot of people do seek school as a safe space, and just going ahead and doing that. And I have a lot of like personal connections with my teachers as well, so knowing that they possibly could be leaving the school is probably something that's going to take a huge toll on my heart, and I don't want to see that happening.
Yes, I agree. And not only will affect students, teachers as well, will affect them, their jobs. But I do believe that it will be very sad to see, you know, personally, I am close to one of my teachers. If I'm thinking about it, it's personally really sad to see they just suddenly leave. But yeah, I do agree on that. School can be a place where you can escape. For me, I do online, so I'm literally at home. But I think having communication with so many teachers online without face-to-face or person-to-person, it feels different, but you somehow have a stronger connection because you're not really physically there, if that makes sense. So hearing this, that it might be a possible, like, people going, but yeah, I do agree.
I think it would be difficult because every student has a different person they connect with kind of thing, and if that person is taken away kind of thing, it can definitely affect how they learn, how they grow, how they get motivated kind of thing, because coming out of COVID, a lot of students, their motivation just tanked kind of thing. So if they don't have that person, if that person is gone, that would be really unfortunate. And I know students definitely need a lot of help getting motivated. Some more than others. You might be motivated by like family, grades, whatever, but if they can figure out something that helps them, that would be great. So I think it would be very important to keep the essential workers in the schools.
I also agree with what everyone said. I strongly believe that teachers and educators are very fundamental towards the school system. They are literally the pillars of everything that happens in their environment and how students learn. And I think it's vital that we have teachers that are able to work and connect with students as much as they can, not just when it comes to education, but also outside of education when it comes to extracurricular activities, whether or not they can be there for the students, etc. And I also think that teachers already are going through hard times with a lot of different issues, especially when it comes to securing a job or finding one in the first place. And I think that having to get rid of over 300 puts a lot of strain within the educational system and the students in general.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say I'm so appreciative, student representatives, for your maturity, and it's just refreshing that you are others focused and thinking about not only your younger siblings but students to come in the future. So it's just very refreshing and very impressed. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the student board reps? As always, we appreciate you and your hard work. Thank you so much. Our next agenda item is audience opportunity to address the school board. I have 10 cards here. That's 3 minutes each. That's 30 minutes. Typically, we allow 20 minutes for this, but at my discretion, I'm going to allow these cards, these people to speak because you waited all this time, and I think it's important that you should be able to do that. During the audience opportunity to address the school board, I'll call on each speaker who has submitted the card. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. The board does not take action or discuss matters during this portion of the meeting. Speakers may be referred to the superintendent or a staff if follow-up is necessary. The complete guidelines for public participation are provided on the meeting materials table and on the school board section of the district website. Just remembering that we're keeping our comments to things about the school district itself. When I call your name, please come to the microphone, state your name, your topic, and also whether or not you're a district resident. Kelly Roll. Sorry you had to wait so long. I know you have someone to get to.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kelly Rail, and I am the mom of 3 kids. I am a resident, and I have 2 of my kiddos at Fernbrook currently. I'm also a member of the ECMAC committee for the last 2 years, and I'm here tonight to urge you to move forward with the authorization of an election for a bond referendum that includes all projects that ECMAC and the district leadership team have proposed. Through our ECMAC discussions, equitable solutions for the unique needs across the district were top priority for us. And we truly believe that the recommendations we have put forth will serve both sides of the capacity challenges currently facing the district. The changes being recommended for under-capacity schools on the east side of the district will allow us to fully staff schools rather than shortchange our scholars with a 0.2 or 0.3 school counselor or music teacher or ESP. It will also allow our overcapacity schools on the west side to get access to the space that they need for things like interventions or ELL, or avoid having our scholars eat lunch in their classrooms or music teachers teaching from a cart due to the lack of space. The numbers don't lie. Fernbrook cannot continue to hold the weight of the new construction that's happening on the west side. And ECMAC has spent hours poring over the data to recommend equitable and financially responsible solutions to our capacity challenges. Our scholars deserve more, and I believe that ECMAC recommendations will provide that. In the board policy, it's clearly called out that when we are able, we should strive to create neighborhood schools. Building a new school on the west side would not only relieve the capacity challenges and help reduce busing costs, but would also be consistent with the policies you've all been sworn to uphold. Please do the right thing for all of our scholars and authorize this election with ECMAC's recommendations. Thank you.
The next card I have is Lupe Hoyt. Sorry, Lupe.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm calling out for this.
You can pull it down.
Yep, okay. I'm super nervous. This is my first time speaking to all of you. My name is Lupe Hoyt. I have been working for the Astor School District for 5 years. This year, I had the opportunity to work for 4-Star Express as one of the ESPs in the classroom. I soon learned that we did not have a lead teacher when the school year started. I understand that prior to the school year starting, my supervisor was and still looking for a teacher. We had a temporary teacher for the month of September. In this classroom, my coworker and I were both ESPs new to working in the 4-Star program. I had to quickly learn how things run in the classroom and the schedule. I had the feeling that it would take a while to get a teacher. Thank God I had some experience with preschool classroom. That experience was very useful. And as you may know, you are not getting paid as a teacher. As I walk down the hallways, teachers have said to me that I should get a raise for doing all this hard work. Even though this has been a hard year for all of us, we're here to support the students and families. I hope you realize that our schools will not be running smoothly if you did not have any support staff in the classrooms, and then the teachers will have to work harder. I'm aware of your current proposal of a 2% raise. That is simply not enough to support our families, especially since our health insurance have gone up 9%. I have spoken with some ESPs that have worked for the district for 20 years. I am told that in that 20 years, their wages have only gone up $5 per hour. This is only 25 cents per hour for each year of service. That does not maintain anyone's standing or living. ESPs and instructors are looking else to work in different districts. ANOCA pays their support staff $21 an hour. I'm leaving you with a question to think about. Are we not worth keeping? Thank you.
Tina Collins.
I don't think I need the stool. All right, everybody, thank you, board, for listening, for letting me talk up here. I am here to tell my story. So I worked for the district in one capacity or another since 2005 when my oldest son started kindergarten. I've volunteered at 5 different schools over the last 18 years. I love being at every one of these schools. When I make a commitment, I put my whole self into whatever I am doing. And to tell you something you may not know, so do most school building employees. From our principals, teachers, custodians, counselors, kitchen staff, ESPs, and other miscellaneous support staff. We are totally committed to our students and their families. Most of us care for our kids. By this I mean all of your children that we support, listen to, and nurture every minute that they are in school. We worry about our kids when they're having a tough day, when they're struggling, when they are sad, and especially when they're just absent, and no one knows why. We celebrate with our kids when they're happy, excited, or when something finally clicks. We put our whole selves into caring for our kids in our schools and communities. Unfortunately, this can sometimes affect our own children at home. I personally have missed a few occasions with my sons because I wholeheartedly felt that these kids at school needed me more at that time and that my children would understand. Because I felt that these kids needed me. Whoops, my phone. My kids needed me more at that time. I was not always correct that my children would understand. I'm a 10-month employee at Basswood. I work a 7-hour day, not including a half-hour lunch that I never seem to have time for. I make approximately $24,000 per year. After insurance and trying to put money into my HSA and retirement fund, I am 61. I bring home about $200 to $300 every 2 weeks on my average paycheck. My paycheck on April 20th was $24.98. Granted, this pay period included our spring break. We also only get paid for 2 days over winter break. Please know that I am at the top of our pay scale. There are so many of us that are in the same boat. I am one of the lucky ones. I am blessed to have a spouse that has a good job with a more lucrative pay. Many of my coworkers are not as lucky. Many of us have to work 2 or even 3 jobs just to keep our families together and fed. This is ridiculous. We take care of your families. Maybe you should think about taking care of ours. We need a higher pay rate and more fiscal responsibility from the district towards our health care. We need more attractive benefit packages, not only to hire more wonderful and qualified staff, but to retain all of us who have served this district so committedly in the past and desire to continue to do so. Thank you.
Sally Kimmis.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sally Kimmis, and I am a Brooklyn Park resident, current library media specialist, and a parent of a former student in the district. Yesterday, I presented at our staff development day, and I shared with my colleagues that I have been in Osseo for 23 years. Now, I've checked and rechecked the math on that because I'm pretty sure I'm only 25. So, but maybe that's the math I need to recheck. Anyway, I started in the district as an EL ESP for 1 hour a day, directly supporting one student. At the time, I decided to look for a job in the schools because I wanted to check out how much I liked being in the classroom and if I would like to possibly become a teacher. Now, not all ESPs have that as their goal, although there are several that I think should consider that. But what many of them want is just to have the same schedule as their children, to have a regular schedule that fits in with other personal life plans or is guaranteed to be the hours when their children are in school. But most of them, I think, just do it because they really love the kids. Now, we all have our own personal example of that thing that you couldn't pay me enough to do. And unfortunately, I think a lot of our ESPs are doing some of those very jobs day in and day out, serving the needs of our children and our staff. They need a settled contract and pay increases that meet or surpass what they could get elsewhere. You never know. The people we attract to our ESP jobs could be the future classroom and district leaders, So let's keep them here doing the job they love, working with students. Thank you.
Sarah Schreiner.
Good evening. I am Sarah Schreiner, and I'm a teacher at Park Central Senior High, and I am here to read a petition signed by more than 100 school and community members. On January 10th, 2023, the Osseo School Board voted to give themselves a raise that almost doubled their monthly salary, an 80% increase for the board chair and a 92% increase for all their board members. This is happening as the district's ESPs work without a contract and without a livable wage. An ESP could likely make a negative income with the current increase in health insurance costs. The labor of district ESPs is being exploited. The following are quotes from district staff ESPs. Quote, "It is a slap in the face, the pittance the district is offering when our insurance is going up 7%. Quote, "Teachers cannot do this alone. It takes a village. ESPs are supporting students educationally as well as personally. This week alone, I helped a student advocate to be able to attend prom, helped him understand how tux rentals work, educated another one about menstruation, helped another get registered for summer school soccer program, several with credit recovery, and discussed the pros and cons of being a Twins fan over a Yankees fan." Quote, "The students I support are receiving higher grades now than before I was there. I am sure that is true for all students. I have my geometry students engaging in class, doing their homework because they understand it, showing up to class and understanding it. My world history students all pass their most recent projects. We advocate for them and encourage them to learn." Quote, "ESPs do what they do because they love supporting the students of District 279. We are short ESPs and continue to have numerous openings because people cannot afford to continue in their current role. ESP out-of-pocket for health insurance has gone up approximately 8 to 9% per year. Wages have not followed suit, nor have wages kept up with inflation. That being said, many of our ESP wages have moved in the negative direction. Some are working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Wages right now are at poverty rate. The district will receive an increased amount of money from the state and past levies, all of which take inflation into account. It's recommended that about 16% of the budget be held for reserve, but District 279 reserve is about 36%, netting the neighborhood of $96 million. For what? To give the board their raise when they won't give ESPs anything close to the rate of inflation? Quote, "As a single parent, I could not stay in the district and had to leave. I stayed, I waited patiently for a handful of years, hoping things would get better with the contracts. They never did. I didn't join the union for a whole year
30
when I
seconds
first started
remaining.
because I couldn't afford to have dues taken out. I couldn't sign up for any sort of insurance at any point because I couldn't afford it for it to come out of my paycheck. I chose union dues as the only thing that I could afford to be taken out, as it was still a struggle. There were numerous times I cried at work because we were so close to losing housing. And the work I was asked to perform for those wages was completely out of balance. I hope things can change for Osseo. To be clear, this isn't about an additional $2 for each ESP. This is about a school board approving a raise for themselves while failing to support a living wage for our ESPs. This is about a school board that should be modeled the same philosophy and standards they impose on all bargaining units. This is about hypocrisy and the message that a school board is more deserving than the ESPs who work in the front line of our students every day.
Thank you. Andrea Gross.
My name is Andrea Gross, and I am a district employee at Northview, and I also live in the district. Good evening, board members. This past November, I stood in the same spot to fight for the equity of my students at Northview and swim safety. Over the past 4 years, I've dedicated my time and energy to advocating for my students to have the opportunities that other students in the district already have without having to fight for it. From 2019, when I first started teaching at Northview, up until today, I have been fighting endlessly for this pool to ensure the safety of our students that live in the land of 10,000 lakes. 4 days ago, I found out that instead of refilling the pool, they would be using the space for a gymnastics facility, something that is truly unnecessary in our district. Ultimately, decisions were made without the expertise of who is directly affected. The athletic directors of all three high schools were not notified. Northview families and communities were not involved in the decision. The high school gymnastics coaches were not asked. In fact, a head coach from a gymnastics team in the district told me, "You should fight for the pool." As a current high school gymnastics coach and a retired college gymnast, I would be the first person to advocate for this, but seeing as the high schools already have gymnastics facilities, this is not a reasonable decision. If the Oversight Task Force knew anything about gymnastics, they would know that on nights there were competitions, the other two teams would not be able to practice. They would know that Park Center has one of the best gymnastics facilities I've seen. They would know that gymnastics teams can barely recruit people for their team, and now you want them to get transportation to and from Northview. It's not reasonable. The district's strategic plan states, address, acknowledge, and reduce systemic disparities, barriers, and inequities as we lead, develop, and align our district towards continuous improvement. It also says, each scholar, staff member, and family is valued and respected for their perspective, experience, and contributions. It says, intentionally engaging diverse voices and perspectives equitably and respectfully. It says, communicating, modeling, and making decisions clearly, equitably, and openly. The Oversight Task Force states the cost estimates to remodel the Northview pool are $4.5 million, where the cost to repurpose the pool space into a dedicated gymnastics venue costs $2.9 million. They recommended over $21 million in remodeling and renovations for Northview. So why can't we use some of that $21 million for the pool? Now, to address the board members specifically in your statements to improve equity in the district. Ms. Simmons, you stated, my athletes developed a sense of courage and confidence not because of my training plan, but because I demonstrated care for them as individuals and confidence in their capability to achieve success. Ms. Mosqueda Jones, you stated, one of my hopes
30
during
seconds
this
remaining.
process is that every voice is heard by reaching out to every community that is represented in our district. Ms. Grady, you stated, I want all students to receive a quality education in a safe and supportive environment, and we need equitably directed resources to solve racial disparities. Mr. Brooks, you stated the significant disparities between our cities, specifically our students of color and white students, are what holds our district back from being a good school district for some to becoming a top-tier choice for all families. Ms. Mitchell, you stated our school
Time.
board and administration must represent all students equally and work with parents and families to support them. Ms. Douglas, you stated, I will remain resolute in my commitment to equity and community engagement across all school sites for all students, making informed, equitably, and fiscally responsible decisions. I hope you reconsider this decision because I am simply tired. My students deserve better.
Dee Dee.
I didn't want to butcher it, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Dee Dee Savanich. I have been one of the nurses at Osseo Senior High for the last 9 years, and I am a parent in the district with an open enrolled first grader. It is my understanding that leadership receives bonuses and incentives for different improvements made by our students. Improvements made possible by the hard work and dedication of our staff who work with our students in the schools. The leadership who make 6 figures and still receive their contracted raises each year. Leadership who don't spend time face-to-face with students 6.5 hours a day, 5 days a week. ESPs, nurses, KidStop staff, AESPs, dietary staff, facility staff, the hourly workers who keep our schools running. No, really. Public education would come to a screeching halt without hourly staff. Yet we, the hourly staff, are not given the opportunity to earn bonuses, even though it's through our hard work with and dedication to our students that our scholars make these improvements. We don't earn bonuses, but we do get the opportunity and have to beg for pay increases. Pay increases that nowhere near reflect inflation or cost of living increases. We're told by leadership to go work at Shipt if we want to make more money. Most of the hourly staff work a second and often a third job to pay for our utilities and keep our cars running. The district has over $95 million in the reserve, or the rainy day fund. That dollar amount increases every year. This district is bleeding hourly staff. If that doesn't make it a rainy day, what does? Now, can you hear how it sounds to your hourly staff? To hear and see the district make and save millions of dollars every year, yet we are told there's no money for wage increases. I can tell you, it's insulting. This district has millions of dollars in reserve. You can choose to do better.
Michelle Straight.
Hi, my name is Michelle, and I live in the district with my husband and 2 middle school children. I respect the commitment and dedication of the school board and district staff, and I trust that we are united in our belief that all students deserve respect, compassion, dignity, and inclusion. As a parent, I need to be confident that I will be informed and supported in my responsibility to safeguard the best interests of my children. Until recently, I hadn't sought out information regarding decisions being made by the school board and district. I had made assumptions that I would be made aware of important things that impact my children. I have 4 questions tonight. Number 1, this winter I started attending school board meetings, and I have heard frequently about transparency and wanting community involvement. But the approval of the LGBT resolution last summer speaks otherwise, as all stakeholders were not taken into consideration. I reached out to the middle school and was told that based upon that resolution, there are plans to introduce LGBT lessons next school year. Will all parents be notified of this new curriculum, and will we have a chance to review the lessons adequately ahead of time? Number 2, in 2021, the book Call Me Max, which teaches that children can be born in the wrong body and be transgender, was placed in district kindergarten classroom libraries for young children to read. Who decided that a book that introduces gender ideology was suitable for 5 and 6-year-olds? Shouldn't contested ideas such as gender identity and transgender ideology be up to the parent to introduce and teach if they feel it is appropriate? Number 3, do parents and students know that the school board approved a gender inclusion policy in 2021 that includes allowing students to use bathrooms and locker rooms based upon their gender identity and not their sex? This means, for example, that boys that identify as girls are allowed to use the girls' locker rooms. Restrooms and changing rooms are places where students are in a state of undress. By allowing persons of the opposite sex to use these spaces, it negates the intention of same-sex facilities, which is for privacy. Same-sex facilities ensure that our children share intimate spaces with people who have the same physical bodies. Our children should not be exposed to the opposite sex's private parts, and our children deserve the right to preserve their own privacy. The solution to this is not to spend taxpayer dollars on needlessly remodeling facilities in order to make them mixed sex, when these dollars should be spent on education or other facility improvements. The lack of proper notification of this policy means the district has taken away from students the ability
30
to make
seconds
informed
remaining.
decisions on their own privacy. Many will feel truly violated by this lack of transparency once they are properly notified. Number 4, are parents aware that if their child asks to use a different name and pronoun, the staff are to do so and affirm whatever the student professes without question, without any requirement to notify the parents? Is it not the parent's right to determine the appropriate way to support their child in this situation? Schools are intended to be a place of education and learning. Gender
Time.
affirmation, if through teaching that gender identity is a fact or through social transitioning, is not education. Schools should create an environment of acceptance for students, but it should not provide gender affirming care, which is medical care, without parental approval and involvement. Parents have a
Michelle?
fundamental right to protect our children's privacy and to control the education and healthcare decisions of our children. We cannot properly exercise these rights if our school and state is empowered to make these decisions without our consent. Thank you.
Diane Erickson.
Good evening. I'm Diane Erickson, and I am a crossing guard. And I took this position 3 years ago during COVID. And I usually was on a school bus. I was a school bus para for 13 years, and I was also a school bus driver for 9 years. So I've been doing District 279 participation for 25 years. So when I took the job, because of COVID, I did take a big cut in pay, nearly $3. And I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but it is a lot of money. And we're out there crossing our kids at Park Center and Bookham Middle and Palmer Lake and Fair Oaks, and keeping them safe. We shovel, we put salt down so our kids are safe on icy areas, and we feel that we should have the same amount of pay as our coworkers. I'm in the transportation department, and so we love our kids, but you know, the safety's important, and we feel like we're there for them. So, and I do work when I'm sick because we don't have anybody to cover for us, and I don't want my coworker to work by herself. So, so that's, when I call in, they said, we don't have anybody to cover for you. So I go in sick. So.
I hope I'm reading this right. The last person is Tashi Johns.
Hi, my name is Tashi Johns. You got it right. My pronouns are they, them. I am a special education ESP at Park Center, and I'm new this year. I'm here to talk about the ESP contract negotiations. ESPs are the grease that keeps schools running. I work 4 side jobs that I hustle in a rotation, and I know that I'm not the only ESP having to do this to make ends meet. As you can imagine, ESPs working evenings and weekends can make it difficult to fully show up mentally and emotionally the way our students need and deserve. The school board should be making decisions in the students' best interest, and being understaffed and having a high turnover rate is not only hurting the staff, but also the students who deserve consistency, especially the students in the special education department. We deserve a living wage, especially when other districts start at a higher pay rate, and some even offer bonuses for completing the school year. I absolutely love Park Center and my job, and I adore my students, and I will always show up for them. But who on the school board is showing up for me and my fellow ESP coworkers so that we can be effective at work? Who on the school board is considering how the ESP contract directly affects the students that need our one-on-one support the most? We deserve a substantial pay increase. We deserve to be paid what we are worth and not have our loyalty to the district and our students taken advantage of the way that it feels right now. Since I have a little time, I'm going to add that on top of this, and on at least 5 occasions this school year, I've had to step up and lead class when substitutes in the special education classrooms have defaulted to me simply because I am there. And even when they have detailed lesson plans right in front of them and instructions on how to interact with each child, I have taught class. And I know that they're being paid a lot more than I am just to be a warm body in the classroom. Next Friday, the other ESP in my classroom, it is her last day. And if I would like to invite any and all of you to come and join me any day of the month of May, even for an hour, to come shadow and help as an ESP in a special education classroom. I would be happy to introduce you to the students and show you what it is like. And my email is johnst@district279.org.
30 seconds
and
remaining.
feel free to reach out to me and come hang out with me for a day to see what the grease that really is keeping our schools running. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to all the speakers and for listening to all the speakers. Our next agenda item is the superintendent's report. Superintendent McIntyre.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Mosqueda Jones, and good evening, board members and those in our audience. And I want to echo the same thing. Thanks for those who came to speak. It's not always easy, especially when the room is full, and many of you were here for a very big chunk of the evening, so thanks for sticking it out with us. A regular part of the superintendent's report is to share our points of pride. It's been a very busy spring, and we have lots of recognitions tonight of staff, students, and our schools. And we do this to take time and recognize and celebrate the things happening in our district that is connected to our mission, which is to inspire, prepare each and every scholar with confidence, courage, and competence to achieve their dreams, contribute to community, and engage in a lifetime of learning. So like I said, tonight's report's a little extra special because of so many recognitions. I know I was building this with Kay, and there was this, we can't leave that out, because there's so many really great things happening, as often is true in the spring. So I do have members of the district cabinet here to assist in sharing all these examples from the last few weeks. Laurel Anderson, Executive Director of Human Resources, Steve Flisk, Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Schools, Brian Severson Hall, Executive Director of Community Education, are here with me, and Anthony Paternos, our Executive Director of Technology, will get us started. So thank you, Anthony.
Thank you. In the area of achieving dreams, Park Center Senior High School has been named Minnesota's only National School of Excellence for the 2022 by ACT's American College Application Campaign for its demonstrated commitment to increasing the number of first-generation college students and students from low-income families pursuing a college degree or other higher education credential. Just 23 schools in the nation received this award this year. Congratulations to the staff and scholars who made this award possible. Congratulations to all of our winter sports teams on great seasons. Thank you for representing our district. Update from the last Points of Pride, the Park Center Senior Boys Basketball team, as featured tonight, placed second in the Class 4A state tournament after a well-fought championship game. You can find a full roundup of our winter sports teams' postseason results on our website. Congratulations to Maple Grove Senior High School, Stava Aurora, Andrew Ladhani, Reese Saladin, on being named 3 of 5,000 scholars selected nationally as U.S. Presidential Scholars Program candidates. The U.S. Presidential Scholars Program recognizes and honors some of the nation's most distinguished graduating high school seniors. Each year, up to 161 students are named as Presidential Scholars, one of the nation's highest honors for high school students. 4 Osseo Area School scholars were recently named recipients of the Mo 123 Scholarship. Congratulations to Seventi Lore, Kylie Berg, from seniors from Park Center Senior High School, and Emily Zhang and Maggie Albers, seniors from Osseo Senior High School. The Mo 123 Scholarship Fund was created in honor of Mustafa Mo Saram, a graduate of Osseo area schools attending Fair Oaks Elementary, Northview Junior High, and Park Center Senior High, who was passionate about education. Mo passed unexpectedly from complications from the flu at the age of 41 in 2018, and his family created the scholarship fund to keep Mustafa's memory alive through helping passionate, like-minded students to make the world a better place. 3 Osseo Area Schools athletes were chosen as the 2023 Athena Award winners, which recognizes outstanding senior female student athletes from Twin Cities metro area high schools. The Athena Award winners include Jordan Borsch of Maple Grove Senior High School, Tessa Strand from Osseo Senior High School, and Haley Ecos from Park Center Senior High School. Minnesota's new educational commissioner, Dr. Willie Jett, was recently featured in our graduate spotlight. Jett is a familiar face in many within Osseo area schools. He attended district schools from grades K through 12, then later returned to work in administration at Park Center Senior High School on his way to the state's top job in education. 15 scholars and 1 staff member at the Osseo Education Center recently participated in a Construct Tomorrow exhibition, which provides resources about post-secondary career opportunities in the construction and building trades industry. The scholars received practical, one-on-one advice from experienced trades professionals and current apprentices who are thriving in apprenticeship programs. Scholars in U.S. Studies classes at Osseo Middle School participated in a career panel put on in partnership with Community Mediation and Restoration Services, CMRS. The career panel took place in each hour of classes on April 5th in the Media Center and allowed scholars to learn about different opportunities they could pursue in the future. Earlier this month, scholars in Osseo HOSA Future Health Professionals attended the Minnesota HOSA State Leadership Conference in St. Cloud. Students completed in a variety of categories, with the top 3 places automatically qualifying and 4th and 5th places provisionally qualifying for the International Leadership Conference and competition in Dallas in June.
The Park Center Senior High School robotics team received accolades for their positive attitudes in March when their team, the Golden Pirates, won the 2023 Team Spirit Award at the Lake Superior Regional FRC Robotics Competition in Duluth. As Linnea mentioned, scholars at Osseo Senior High School are getting ready for their upcoming production of The Addams Family. The musical follows the ghoulish Addams family, who have an affinity for all things macabre, as their daughter Wednesday falls in love with a normal boy. Upcoming shows will take place at the Osseo Senior High School Auditorium on April 27th, 28th, and 29th. The cast and crew of Maple Grove Middle School's spring musical put on a wonderful performance of Beauty and the Beast Jr. earlier this month. Congratulations to these talented scholars. In the area of contributing to community, Mary Jane Watson, a volunteer for the Adult Basic Education Program, has worked with the program for 6 years, helping scholars who are working to learn how to speak, read, and write English. Mary Jane said, "My favorite part is meeting people from all over the world. It seems like every month there is a new student from a country where I have never met somebody from that country. It's just amazing." Elm Creek Elementary School scholars recently had the opportunity to have watchdogs, dads of great students, visit with them in the classrooms, participating in various academic activities and lessons. Joelle Taglin, volunteer coordinator at Elm Creek, said, "We have dads, stepdads, grandpas, and other male role models who come once a month and help in our classrooms. The students absolutely love when the watchdogs come. They're like celebrities for the day. It's good to see men here engaging and getting involved." In the area of lifelong learning, April is Library School Month, which marks a time to celebrate the essential role that strong school libraries play in transforming learning. Around Osseo area schools, fun and educational events take place in library media centers all year long. A few highlights from this month include a focus on poetry and poem writing at Edinburgh Elementary School, along with a book tasting event and a book March Madness tournament at Garden City Elementary School. Crestview Elementary School scholars in grades kindergarten, 1st, and 3rd got to put their creative construction caps on when representatives from the Works Museum and Interactive Children's Museum in Bloomington came to the school to explore science, technology, engineering and math, or STEM projects with the scholars. Each March, Osseo Area Schools recognizes Music in Our Schools Month, which is an opportunity for music teachers to bring their music programs to the attention of the school and the community, and to display the benefits that school music brings to students of all ages. At Basswood Elementary School, scholars performed in a Music in Our Schools festival, showing off what they've learned in their music classes so far this year. Also during Music in Our Schools Month, musicians from 3 district schools marked the occasion with a collaborative orchestra festival. For the 4th straight year, Northview and Brooklyn Steam Middle School musicians spent a day at Park Center Senior High School to prepare for and perform at Fiddlefest.
Early spring is prime basketball season for many fans who enjoy taking the NCAA March Madness tournaments, and Northview Middle School got in the spirit with their 2nd annual Northview March Madness event held at the end of March. Scholars created 24 teams for the school bracket with about 120 players involved. Additionally, another 50 scholars volunteered for supporting roles in the event, such as referees, DJs, pep band, cheer squad, and scorekeepers. Weaver Lake Elementary School scholars are excited to spend time in the school's new Star Lab planetarium, which was purchased with funds raised at their most recent fun run. All students will use the Star Lab once per trimester as an enhancement to the school's value-added STEM curriculum. CCX Media recently joined Rush Creek Elementary School during a visit from the Science Museum of Minnesota. Museum instructors led experiments teaching scholars about the engineering process. Jan Groner, an instructor with the Science Museum Minnesota, said, "It's a process we use in more than just engineering. To ask questions, imagine, plan, create, test, and improve." This school year, Palmer Lake Elementary School English language teachers have organized monthly cultural museums that the entire school can take part in and learn from. April's museum focused on women's history, and others have included Asian, African, Hispanic, and Native American. Scholars and families at Elm Creek Elementary School recently participated in a family reading night. At the event, there were a variety of activities to help encourage reading growth, including making a bookmark, listening to a story read out loud, reading a poem or joke, participating in dramatic play, finding 4 in a row, learning about rhymes and sounds, reading in silly voices, listening to and making their own dot stories, and playing word bingo. Representatives from several Minnesota school districts spent the morning at Edenbrook Elementary School on April 12th, where they took time to learn about the school's advancement via individual determination, or AVID, programming and how to implement it in their own schools. AVID programs seek to accelerate learning and set common goals and language throughout school-wide to help students have more agency over their learning. The staff and parent-teacher organization at Oakview Elementary School was hard at work recently pulling off the first annual STEM night. Scholars and families joined in to participate in STEM activities and see their teachers dressed up in lab coats. Activities included folding and flying paper airplanes, static electricity experiments, ping pong ball launcher, holding a snake, and live chemistry show. Birch Grove School for the Arts partnered with Minnesota Public Radio's Artists in Residence program to bring in the Tatambi West African Dance Ensemble of Minnesota on April 12th. The group introduced their instruments of both English and Ghanaian, explained their use in Ghanaian culture, and got all students up and dancing during their lively performance.
There were surprises around every corner at Fair Oaks Elementary School when the school took an afternoon for their second annual Winter Games. Rescheduled from an earlier date, the games were held on a beautiful early spring day, and scholars had a wide variety of indoor and outdoor activities to choose from. For this year's school safety poster contest, scholars from Osseo area schools were charged with designing a poster featuring the phrase, "Safely rolling to my destination." They delivered an impressive array of posters to choose from. Congratulations to this year's winners. In the area of mission-driven employees, for more than 50 years, Osseo area schools employees in Wastebasket Review have put on an annual variety show to raise money for scholarships to assist graduating students in their post-secondary plans. Some of the performers have been involved since the original show in 1967 and continue to come back year after year. This year, the performers put on their show on Broadway. Thank you to everyone who attended one of the shows to support Wastebasket Review. Osseo Area School Staff Spotlight for March is Kenzie Burdick-Levang, an ESP at Northview Middle School, who combines her passion for art and dedication to helping scholars overcome challenges to her job every day. Her supervisor, Ann Dale, says, "Kenzie is a dedicated, hard worker. She wants to serve students at a high level." Ronald Salazar, principal of Birch Grove School of the Arts, has been named Magnet Schools of America's Region 4 Principal of the Year. Principal Salazar said, "Whatever award is given to one of us is really given to everyone that works with us. because there's no way that one person can accomplish much alone. And Mr. Salazar is with us in the room right now, too, so. Congratulations, Ronald. April is Occupational Therapy Month, and throughout the district, occupational therapists, or OTs, make a difference in helping each scholar succeed and achieve their dream. OTs develop creative solutions for students to accomplish everyday tasks and are a primary support person for many scholars and families. One of the dedicated OTs is Barb Nyhammer, an OT at Willow Lane Early Childhood Center. Thank you, OTs, for all you do for our scholars. Each day, administrative professionals in buildings across the district assist with day-to-day operations behind the scenes, keeping schools and services running smoothly. April 26th is Administrative Professionals Day, and we would like to take the opportunity to highlight a few of the administrative professionals in Osseo area schools. Kelly Roush from Maple Grove Senior High, Sharon Groich from Osseo Middle School, and Kate Rosbecca from 279 Online. Congratulations to Maple Grove Senior High football head coach Matt Lombardi, who was named the Class 6A Coach of the Year by the Minnesota Football Coaches Association.
Like I said, lots to cover. And I want to give a shout out to Melissa Sanchez. I was able to give her the Superintendent's Award at the Wastebasket Review production on Friday night, and she's, like many, been there over 20 years, probably did every job possible with the organization, and it was a fun event, so congratulations to Melissa. Just some reminders for this evening. Kindergarten orientation events are happening at all of our district elementary schools this spring, and you can find the calendar on our website for the date for each school. Graduation is coming. It is upon us, and all dates are in early June. You'll see dates and times for each of our schools listed on the slide here, and we really look forward to celebrating the momentous occasion with our students and families. Chair Mosqueda Jones, that concludes my superintendent's report for this evening, so thank you.
Thank you. Kind of exciting to see a few people that I used to work with in that lineup. All right, our next agenda item is the school board reports. Director Mitchell, do you have a report or update?
Yeah, just briefly, I know John and others will be touching on the ECMAC committee, but this is essential. This committee is really essential to the agenda item that we'll be voting on in 2 weeks for the recommendation to authorize a special election. And so I just want to share briefly, talking to people in the community, a lot of people aren't aware of what all these different acronyms and committees are. So just briefly, the ECMAC stands for the Enrollment and Capacity Management Advisory Committee. One of our leaders is John Morstad, our district's Executive Director of Finance and Operations. And I appreciate that this committee includes a couple of us as board members. Thomas and myself serve along with district staff and engaged parents. Kelly, one of the parents that spoke tonight, who actually have students in our district and have students at some of these schools that are facing these capacity issues. And the expertise of our district leaders, along with a balance of stakeholders, is key for our next phase of facilities and maintenance development, for input for that. This committee thoroughly studies student enrollment along with capacity and building use. And as Kelly stated, there's significant growth happening in current areas of our district at this time and much predicted growth over the next few years. So just to be sensitive for time, I just want to encourage everyone that is interested to go to the district website and review past work sessions where you can see the thorough information and really just educate yourself on all the background information that is really helpful in making that decision. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Brooks, do you have any?
Do you want to do RISE?
I was
You
not
plan
able
to?
to make it because of my
Okay.
father's surgery.
Yeah, so I give a RISE committee update. They did have a meeting last week that I was not able to attend, but the work continued from the previous month. The RISE committee is taking a deeper dive into our resolutions, so the George Floyd resolution, the LGBTQIA+ resolution, and the AAPI resolution. So really asking some critical questions to determine our progress on each of those, the work that's already happened and the work that is to come. So that is really a bulk of the report at this time.
Thank you. Director Simons.
Yes, I have the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance for Youth. So we had two really significant items, which was the approval of the revitalized strategic plan and the budget, were the kind of two really big ones. I was gonna share some information from the revitalized strategic plan, but I know we're running a bit short on time, so I did send that to all board members. You may already receive that, having subscribed. I do want to call out, though, the vision and the mission, as that's been revitalized. I love that term that they're using, the revitalization of it, and it's the result of having a strategic planning session that involved leadership of our district and many other organizations that make up B-Bay, as well as youth and community members. And so the shared vision is the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance contributes to the thriving of each young person, particularly those who've been historically marginalized, by challenging inequities and creating conditions that build hope. And the mission, the B-Bay is the backbone organization that coordinates the efforts of partners to build a system of high quality, accessible, and fully resourced opportunities that address systemic disparities in graduation, pathways to college and career, and youth safety and well-being. So do check that out with the core values, the goals, and strategies. But I think that really that focus on creating conditions that build hope and improving those pathways are really incredible language of building kind of what we hope for the future.
Thank you. Director Douglas.
The only update I have this evening is actually thank you to Chair Mosqueda Jones for working with me. We're actually swapping committees partway through the year, which we normally do not do. We usually do that in January, but due to scheduling conflicts, she's offered to switch committees. So I will no longer be District 287 liaison and board member. Chair Mosqueda Jones will be, and then I will be taking over the Northwest Suburban Integration District.
Starting next school year.
Yes, starting next school year.
I will
Sorry.
finish that out, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and then I have the update from AMSD. A lot of things are happening at the legislature right now, too many to mention. But last week we had an information session led by the information from Representative Heather Edelson talking about the READ Act, which is $41 million in for literacy training and to support schools. There are a lot of other great things, including ethnic studies, updates on the tiered teacher licensure program, a 4% and then a second year 5% formula allowance increase for funding our schools, a 40% reduction in the special ed cross subsidy. There's a reduction in the English language learner cross subsidy, an increase of funding for teachers of color and American Indian teachers. There's new funding for libraries. There's paid training for ESPs. And then the menstrual equity part passed as a part of all of these things. Now, the House bills and the Senate bills are not exactly aligned. Those go to conference committee in the coming weeks, and they'll hammer out the differences with the funding formulas and some of the other stuff. But there are really like a lot of amazing things coming to support schools. It's been very sad as a school board member to see just, decades of a lack of funding, underfunding, severe underfunding that, leads to people being underpaid and students being underfunded. So I'm looking forward to these changes. Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you. At this time, my reports are, I was not able to make the DPAC report as was stated at the work session last Tuesday. My father's going through some significant cancer surgery issues, so I've been with him quite a bit. So I was not able to make the DPAC, but they are preparing to do a presentation next month on their recommendations. Northwest Suburban Integration School District, we're meeting tomorrow morning for a special meeting to make sure that we can go forward with our interviews for the next executive director of Northwest Suburban Integration School District. And then as Director Douglas mentioned, our next 287 meeting is in May, so I will be attending that meeting when that comes. That's all I have. And our first presentation tonight is the Building the Better Future Phase 2 facilities recommendation from Superintendent McIntyre.
Thank you. So yes, myself and Director Morstead and Kay Valella will assist with tonight's presentation. So I'm going to turn it to John to kind of just cover again some review of information you've seen here last week and prior, to kind of set the table for the recommendation. So thanks, John.
Thank you, Superintendent McIntyre, Chair Mosqueda Jones, board members, and members of the audience. This is a critical moment in the history of Osseo area schools. This presentation we're putting in front of you is the culmination of about 5 years' worth of work. One of our strategic priorities focuses on safe, welcoming, and inclusive learning environments that foster global curiosity, belonging, innovation, and engagement. These priorities were born out of the desires of our community members and what they want to see in Osseo area schools. We have been heavily investing in making major facilities improvements using long-term facility maintenance funds to start bringing our buildings up to the next generation learning standard. This recommendation builds on the work we have already done to continue to meet our goals of next generation learning for all buildings. Starting in 2018, then Superintendent Bauk established the Integrated Facilities Task Force to begin studying our overall facility needs. In 2019, the school board and administration started having conversations about how education should look in the future, rebranding the Integrated Facilities Task Force as Building a Better Future. Thousands of hours of meetings, research, collaboration between students, between staff, community members, along with a number of surveys have been done to to study all of our educational needs, the educational philosophy we want, and exploring areas where we need to improve, both instructionally and in our physical building environments. Some of the team members from these groups are with us here tonight, and I thank you for all your service. The initial study groups focused on elementary and secondary learning space, specialized services, which specifically is special education, gifted and talented, and English language learners, just to name a few, community education facility needs, furniture standards, magnet school programming, career and technical education programming, middle school athletics, and undercapacity facility options. The Oversight Task Force first convened in 2021 and made the recommendation for the addition of the Rice Lake to add additional capacity, along with a number of athletic improvements at stadiums and with equipment such as scoreboards, turf replacement, and hoists for wrestling mats at Park Center. They also recommended further study in all of these areas with the exception of middle school athletics to complete a comprehensive facility study, again, based on next generation learning standards. While our study groups continued their work, the district successfully executed a campaign for phase 1 of Building a Better Future, which focused on our learning and technology needs. This included expanding individualized learning, academic interventions, our scholars' mental health needs, and other critical classroom supports. With these funds received from phase 1, we proactively allocated funding to pay for future staffing needs as the district continues to grow. During phase 1, we noted that research needed to be completed before moving forward with any additional facility needs. Study groups continued their work through 2022, presenting their final recommendations to the board in January of 2023. The focuses again were specific facility needs for elementary and secondary learning, specialized services, community education, the standardization of furniture, magnet school programming, career and technical education, and then over and under capacity buildings. The findings of the initial study groups determined the need to move to next generation learning spaces based on the desires of our students and our community members. This direction was integral in the development of the board's strategic priorities and these latest recommendations. Oversight Task Force reconvened for a second time to evaluate the study group recommendations and determine prioritization dependent on need and ensure that each project would be a prudent use of taxpayer funds. Their final recommendations were presented to superintendent and school board last week at the work session. As a reminder, the Build a Better Future Phase 2 process began with the study groups and district advisory teams evaluating our facility needs from a lens of each area of expertise. Those recommendations went to Oversight Task Force for review, and today we're presenting the final recommendations from the superintendent to the school board. As we've shared, our district has gone through this process twice to get where we are today. The last 5 years of planning for building a better future has involved numerous staff, students, families, and community members who've given their time and expertise to the process to carefully evaluate our needs, identify options, provide recommendations that they believe align with what our stakeholders have told us that they want in our district. And I will turn the next sections over to Superintendent McIntyre.
Yeah, thank you, John. So, board members, over the years, the board supported and directed really the work that John covered earlier around building a better future, what initially started as that Integrated Facilities Task Force. And really including the extensive work that the study groups and others have completed, and it really, I want to stress again, and has included numerous staff, community members, students, number of board committees, and now twice the Oversight Task Force. That's resulted in the recommendations provided now. This builds on the work already started in the 5 years previous, including that phase 1 successful referendum we had last year to make sure our staffing needs were met. So my belief is that the next generation learning improvements increase and level the playing field in an equity perspective across the district in our facilities approach. And that this is one of the most important equity efforts we can have, as next generation learning spaces will create improved learning environments district-wide, and is a key step in realizing our mission, vision, and strategic priorities by improving learning and increasing the physical and psychological safety and decreasing behavior issues that our scholars experience. We feel this investment will provide substantial improvements for our entire school community at each site. So I'm just going to cover some of the recommendations from the Oversight Task Force. You've seen these before, but it's worth covering again. The main categories of the projects, and there's specific detail provided to you a number of times leading up to tonight, that the Oversight Task Force provided final recommendations on. And they really worked hard to look at what were the needs. You know, we've talked about what were the wants, and then what are the needs that we really truly need to have to move forward to be prudent financially. So, improving safety and security at all schools. This includes secure entrances at high schools, as well as improving overall security at all schools. Expanding and modernizing career and technical education spaces at Maple Grove Senior High, Osseo Senior High, and Park Center Senior High. And many of you board members remember the multiple meetings, revisions, and continuing to improve upon that plan. That seems like a long time ago now, but a lot of extensive work happened there. Expanding and modernizing science, technology, engineering, arts, and math spaces at our magnet schools. Updating classrooms to accommodate varied learning needs at all schools. And this really emphasizes what John said earlier. This is the classrooms we need to meet the variety of needs in our special education department, our gifted and talented learners, and our multilingual learners. Also updating classrooms district-wide with common areas, new furniture, and flexible learning spaces, again, at all schools. And you've had just a taste of that at Rice Lake when we've held some meetings there. Additionally, we'll modernize library media centers at all schools to be more resourceful and accommodating to teaching and learning needs at all schools, and adding outdoor classroom at all elementary and middle schools. Repurposing an existing elementary to meet the community education program needs, including early childhood learning, adult basic education, and enrichment opportunities from birth through adult. The reason we recommend opting to repurpose the schools to keep our options open long-term while meeting the expanded needs of our community engagement and family and community engagement efforts, especially around early childhood, adult basic ed, and enrichment. And as a district, just to kind of look back in time, we took these exact steps in 2000 with the repurposing of Willow Lane for early childhood special ed and the addition of Woodland Elementary. Adding classrooms and a larger cafeteria onto Maple Grove Senior High and an elementary school in Northwest Maple Grove. As mentioned a couple of times tonight, ECMAC has been monitoring the need for expansion of Maple Grove Senior High and an elementary school in Maple Grove for the past 6 years, and maybe beyond that. This need is really to provide necessary classroom space to reduce class sizes and meet the growing enrollment challenges that are coming. It keeps the district compliant with school board policy. We have a school board policy which supports neighborhood schools by maximizing the number of students who are able to attend their school in the building close to their homes. That's policy 810. From the project list, you can see that this plan provides substantial improvements for all schools throughout the district. As the Oversight Task Force did their work, equity was in the first criteria set and adhered to by the Oversight Task Force in getting to this point of the plan. This builds upon the work, including our regular ongoing annual maintenance work, already done to reach a more consistent learning experience for all of our scholars. And one that our staff, students, families, and community members are expecting from us. This also poises us as a destination district, one that families feel supportive in there and offers the kind of educational programming they want in their child's schools with the individualized learning attention they deserve. We know, we've talked about it many times, we know all families have choices right now where they go to school. We have proportionally one of the highest numbers of school options in our district. And this this would make Osseo area schools the place to be. This group is recommending, based on all the information gathered, studied extensively, and evaluated, that the school board authorize a referendum to ask our community to see if they would support this proposal and to approve a bond election for school facilities on November 7th. And I support that recommendation. I also support the Oversight Task Force recommendation that the board approve an adjusted LTFM 10-year plan to complete complementary projects sooner to maximize the positive impact of our students and have additional savings by combining projects. A note on the LTFM allowable uses is this funding source includes the renovation of buildings with like-for-like replacement. It cannot pay for new things or new items, but can update existing. If the request is approved by voters, the bond referendum would cost about $7 per month for the average valued home in our district, which is about $300,000 at this point in time. This considers today's prices. So of course, if this plan were to be done later, the tax impact would increase. So really there's no better time, there's no cheaper time to move this forward than now. We've worked with our labor groups as well, and they're supportive of this plan, and as are many other staff members and community members and students you heard from a little bit tonight involved in the process. It also gives our families and community members the opportunity to have an input. If it goes to a vote, we'll listen to what the community tells us, if they support that through an election or not. It's been more than 20 years since the community has been asked to reinvest in our school buildings. Many districts that neighbor us or in the metro have been doing this within the last 20 years, who we honestly tend to compete with for enrollment. The final phase of our Building a Better Future meets the overall needs of the schools for the foreseeable future. We do not, you're probably with me, we do not like going up for this very often. That's why it's been so long. And we like to make sure that this can be a sustainable long-term solution so that our scholars can succeed both today and in the generation to come, as you kind of heard from our scholars who have younger siblings coming or in our system. We've really focused on those items up to this point, and I think it's also a timely opportunity to really talk about a complete picture here too. Kind of like we did in phase one. So we wanted to address the logical consequences of not moving forward with the recommendation. If we opt to not move forward, we'll have crowded conditions and larger class sizes that would continue at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. It's unavoidable. Attendance boundary changes would be required to provide relief. Without a new school, we would literally need to shift students from west to east, and about 2/3 of the students would be impacted. We could be moving potentially up to 14,000 of our 20,000 students to new schools. 12 of the 17 elementaries would be impacted, 3 of the 4 middle schools, and nearly every high school. Students would be required to change schools, and this would dramatically change kind of how our district is designed, and many students would be taken away from the connections that they've established with their friends, their teachers, and they would be traveling from their neighborhood schools on buses much longer. Transportation costs would increase for both us and our families. One attendance boundary example would be moving, even if we moved all of the students from Fernbrook Elementary, that may not be enough capacity to absorb the growth that's coming in Northwest Maple Grove. And this would play out time and time again in different buildings in the district at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. The last time the district had to make a major boundary change was 2008 and 2009. Osseo Elementary, Edgewood Elementary were closed. Weaver Lake switched from a neighborhood school to a magnet school, and Cedar Island, Oakview, and Fair Oaks moved to a community school model, with some buildings set as K-3 and others as 4-6, and we made those changes. These changes affected over 3,000 students. We're talking now about a change 4 times that. At the time, though, those 3,000 students were about 14% of our enrollment, and following that, the district lost nearly 2,100 students. That resulted in a loss of $25 million in revenue, which caused major budget cuts. And some of these cuts included learning program reductions, teacher reductions, and support staff reductions, including mental health, as well as middle school sports and many other things. This was the last time the district was forced to make reductions. If that same level of reduction comparatively would be done again, we would be looking at a loss of over $31 million, which would require the elimination of about 300 jobs. This, of course, is a conservative estimate, as John always tells me, and there's no history of us ever making that large of a change, moving that many students at once in our entire district. Essentially, we believe this experience would be a devastating loss in enrollment if this plan does not move forward, and this could very well be a situation where it'd be very difficult to ever recover from. So opting not to act now also puts, again, us in conflict with the board policy that we've adhered to around making sure students attend their neighborhood schools as much as possible. Additionally, school building projects to improve safety and security would not proceed at the pace we wish. School buildings and learning spaces would continue to age and become less relevant. This would limit learning facilities demanded by our students and families, especially in special education, English learners, gifted and talented services, math, science, and career options, and library media centers. And those inequitable learning experiences would continue. So tonight we're just kind of putting this out to you for further conversation because, again, as mentioned earlier, not everyone was able to attend our work session before, and we've really given you a lot of information recently, but just over the last few months. So just to take more time to really absorb and digest and ask, like I said last week, please come forward with questions or clarifications as you kind of unpack this and make your own decisions as a board. It's our job to give you that information about what it can do, and it's our job to give you the information of what will happen if we don't, and then it's ultimately your decision, right? I want to commend John, Kay, and so many of our committee members who have spent hours, days, weeks, months. I know Kelly has tracked the number of meetings we had on CTE. I don't want to repeat it. Just extensive work by a lot of expertise, and you heard from one of our community members also from ACMAC. Many of our community members have been heavily involved in it as well. So we think taking a little more time to just make sure we have everything on the table for you to make the best decision you can make is wise, because we can still meet our deadlines should the board decide to move forward for a November 7th election. So with that, Chair Mosqueda Jones, I'll turn it back to you for facilitating any comments or questions that you'd like to present tonight.
Okay, board members, at this time, I'd like to open it to questions, comments.
May I offer a little bit of additional history that wasn't included, although that was extremely thorough?
Yes.
I know that it wasn't included because it didn't happen, but several years ago, there was a potential boundary change at Basswood. Patrick Smith is here, and he is very well of that situation. When that potential boundary change came for, well, actually, it was supposed to be a boundary change. It ended up not being a boundary change because our community was outraged. They were really upset. We had lots of families planning to leave. Many did leave. They went to our neighboring schools, and many of them never came back. However, that was just 2 schools, Oakview and Basswood, that were impacted. And that actually is the reason why we developed ECMAC, because of the intense participation of our community members and our parents and their insistence on being involved in that process. That is exactly why we developed ECMAC, because we wanted to provide an opportunity for our community members, our parents in schools across our district to be a part of these decisions. And I feel that it's extremely important to include that in this conversation, because that was such a critical time in our school district. We were facing significant challenges. Basswood was severely overcrowded. I, at the time, was a parent volunteer in that school, and I was in the hallways helping kids do math. And that's not a productive learning environment for kids, but it was all we had, so that's what we did. And Patrick did a great job of managing the situation and navigating that with families and parents. But when I'm telling you that parents were outraged, they absolutely were. There were people yelling and screaming and crying, and for them it was detrimental because they chose to live in those areas to go to Basswood. That's what they were expecting. And when they found that wasn't going to be happening, they were ready to sell their houses. I do not want to put our community members in a situation like that, especially not if we're talking about more than 2 schools. We're talking about potentially 2/3 of the families in our district who are going to be faced with boundary changes if we do not pass this. And I really do believe we will not be able to recover from a fallout like that. We're already in a state of critical need right now. We have immense staffing shortages. We've heard from our ESPs tonight how dire the situation is for them. And if we are to lose 300 staff positions or more, I cannot imagine how detrimental that will be to the academic outcomes of our students and the workload of our staff. I really cannot stress enough how vital it is for us to move forward with this. If our community has the opportunity to vote on this and they decide that it isn't something that they want to contribute to, then that's a different story. But as a fiscally responsible board, the entire time that I've served this board has been working towards this. We have spent hours and thousands of dollars on working towards this and working with community members and staff members and students and everyone that we can possibly bring into the conversation. To let that all just go to waste and not bring this forward would be a travesty to our community. And I believe that it would be absolutely detrimental to the trust and transparency and the relationships that we've been trying to build with our community members. So I unequivocally support the decision to move forward with the bond referendum. Again, this has been something that has been a pressing issue in our community since before my time on the board, and I have been serving for over 6 years. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
So I've had the opportunity to serve on the Building a Better Future Oversight Committee since it began. And it has been a significant amount of work and process and rigor. We have gone line by line for years, from the very first facilities audit that was very large. The starting point was significant, and we literally went through every item and said, how does this fit with the criteria that has been set, and is this a need or a want? And so we thoroughly discussed every item. So some of the items that have been brought up in discussion earlier in this evening had significant conversation and discussion. So again, the process was quite rigorous for this entire time. I also served on ECMAC for the up until just this year. And back when we made the determination that we would move forward with the Rice Lake addition, at that time, we knew that a new building was going to be required. We knew that it would be coming, and we were seeking to make the best decisions at the time, knowing that when that development began and took off, it would be time. And so for me as a board member, I've really appreciated the process and the rigor. And again, this is what we have known this is coming, so this is not a surprise. Additionally, the engagement of ECMAC from across the district and their support of the recommendation, I think, is a significant part of this conversation as well, to your point. I may have additional comments, but that's where I'm thinking right now.
I just also wanted to say that I think I really appreciate, just to briefly share some of the thoughtfulness and thoroughness of this recommendation. From the committee, there were 6 decision-making criteria that they took into account when they looked at over 70 individual facilities in our district. And just to mention those, they were equitable impact, fiscal responsibility, district-wide alignment and standards, capacity, looking at long-term impact, return on investment, program improvement, communication and engagement, and flexible and adaptable learning environments. And I just want to note, what I so appreciate about this decision and why I think it's urgent is the creativity and the insightful and fiscally wise suggestions will actually save us money in the long term by the thoughtfulness of combining several of the necessary projects at each facility by pairing some of the same site projects that some of our experts have addressed will not only accelerate our long-term facilities planning and maintenance, but will also reduce construction time and substantial costs. So I believe this is such a wise decision, not just for today, but looking at long-term into the future.
I have a couple questions, John, and thank you everyone for all the work you've put into this. What is the cost approximately of all the long-term facilities management projects that are wrapped into this?
Approximately 150 million.
150 million, okay. And then I'm wondering, looking at overall enrollment through 2028, is that throughout the entire district, because we are one district, the enrollment is flat. And it's at 3 schools, we are over capacity. But I also see deep concerns for so many schools that are under capacity. And so I guess my question is, why would we build a new school when there are other places that are under capacity?
I'm going to break your question up into a couple pieces. So first of all, the enrollment projection that goes through 2028 accounts for about 4,000 new housing units. We anticipate that number to actually be 8,000 to 10,000 new housing units because we are only counting applications or projects that have gone through the city councils. So they're either in an application or approval stage or construction with the city councils. So we're not, even though we can look at all the rest of the land in Northwest Maple Grove and even go in on the Hennepin County's website and tell you exactly who the owners are, and in about 80% of the cases, those owners are home development companies like Lennar, US Homes, I forget, Pulte, things like that. So they already own the land. They're just waiting for the time when they're ready, and typically it's when utilities come up there, so it's less expensive for them. Well, with the Evanswood addition right next door to the property that we have slated for a new school, all utilities were brought into that area. So now they're starting to pull and branch off, and we're starting to see more the next phase of those developments come in. We need to address undercapacity too.
So this enrollment sheet just includes the capacity issues that are on the books right now?
Correct.
Not any of the empty land that will be developed?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And the undercapacity side is, and I think I've mentioned this previously, our districts in general have an ebb and flow to their enrollment. So you take a district like ours where we have development here. Well, long ago, Brooklyn Park was that developing piece. They were growing, we had to keep adding schools, The district made the decision to say, hey, we have a capacity need in 2000 where we had to add a new school in Woodland. We also had the opportunity to move all those kids down to Willow Lane, but it wasn't the right decision because you're gonna make those kids drive an incredibly long distance. And again, you're probably gonna hear a little bit of uproar from your community to say, rather than us build a neighboring school like we have in our board policy, we're gonna ship you down across town. So this is essentially the same thing 20-some years later, it just happens to be shifting west. And with that, the Brooklyn Park or east side of our district is declining because in many of those cases, the families that own those homes, their students have aged out of our system. They've come and gone through and we've had the opportunity to serve them, and you see a lot of them here winning awards and being recognized. As those families move out, they're empty nesting. Keep in mind, we have 60% of the homes in our district don't have kids in them. So our enrollment starts to decline on that side of town while we're picking up enrollment on the other side of town. So we have waves going in opposite directions. Eventually, the Brooklyn Park side of town, those houses will turn over and new younger families with kids who will start going through our system will eventually repopulate that area. That's just the normal flow of how schools typically go while we're building out and growing. Take a a district like Minneapolis, they're considered built out. They don't have new land. If they're doing anything, it's redevelopment stuff here and there. So it's much smaller pieces. We're still doing redevelopment within our own on top of all this other new potential growth. So with that, you have to plan for it's going to go up, it's going to go down. How can we best utilize a building that's really low and under capacity today when we know we have really heavy needs in special, community ed services. Right now, we're basically jamming early childhood family ed, ABE, early childhood special ed all into one building where they need twice as much space as what they have today. So being able to take advantage of a building that's under capacity where we could reallocate those kids to buildings to improve capacity again, farther around where it's a little bit, the other classes or other schools around them have the space to be able to take those students. It still fits within the neighborhood. It's still close. Typically, we're looking at things that be less than a mile change for most students. And then we can utilize that for community ed. We still hold that asset. We didn't sell that to a charter school that's going to take kids away from us. That asset is still ours. We're using it for better programming for community ed that they can expand, do other things. We can actually bring all our ECSE staff together into one building so their supervisor doesn't have to travel between 3-4 sites just to communicate with her team. And then we can expand the programming because of that. So that's that balance of, and really what it's been very interesting coming from a district that didn't take this view of what ECMAC does to really dig this deep, building by building by building, year by year. And many times in our conversations with the ECMAC team, we say, this is a slow process. Okay, this is observations, this is taking time, and those observations have grown. I think we've been talking about the new school for at least 4 years, if not potentially like, oh, we're gonna need to. Well, we also wanna be prudent with taxpayer dollars. And it's important for the district to not say, we need more money, unless we actually need more money. So that's why this has not gone out before. It's one of the reasons why it didn't go with the election last year, was we thought we can wait another year. So that's why the proposal is here today.
Thank you. One more question to follow up on that. Can you situate the Osseo School District demographics changes over time within the context of the state? Like, are we seeing increases in enrollment everywhere across the state? Is that what's happening with our population trends, or is it flat or lowering? I've been looking at some of that on the higher ed end of things. I'm wondering what, from your perspective, it is for public schools.
I can't really answer that in a well-educated way. I guess I haven't looked at it from a statewide level. I know within our district, so one of the concerns that we have is as we look at the 25-26 school year, that's the first school year that children born in 2020, the pandemic year, would go to kindergarten. We saw a dramatic decline in all of Hennepin County, about 2,000 less births than we would have expected, which is about a 50-year low. To us, that if all things were equal like they normally are, that's about 200, 210 less kindergartners for that year. However, that includes places like Minneapolis, places like Robbinsdale, Edina, they're built out. So they need turnover to get those new families with younger kids where we can add. We have them moving into our district. Even you're seeing a lot of flight from more urban city centers out to the suburbs. We, as our district, because we still have it available, we see a little more growth with that. And you see that a lot in just the value of our district. Last year, the value of our district went up 6.7%, which was one of the highest in the state. This year, I know the estimates I saw are 8%. So it's climbing, and as it climbs, it takes our tax impact and it spreads it over more people and actually lessens it. That's why this opportunity comes in at $7 a month and not $11 or $12 a month like the opportunity down in Rosemont, Apple Valley, Egan is for essentially, they're a little bit bigger than us, but for essentially the same ask. Theirs is about $12 a month, and ours is $7. So asking for very similar things.
Within the Northview School, is it possible to replace the pool there with the long-term facilities management money? Because it does seem to me like an equity issue.
Is it possible? Yes. I'm not going to say it's not. One of the issues that is a problem with Northview is that pool is too shallow for current code. So because it was built before, we can be grandfathered and rebuild it at that same depth. If we make it deeper, we're now subject to new code. So as an example, you can never dive in that pool. It's too shallow. Insurance would never allow a waiver to do that. And we have done that in the past. Fortunately, no one got hurt. But that was a decision that could have been very dangerous and very detrimental. If you did that now, the district's liable whether you give a waiver or not. So if a student got hurt doing that, we would be fully liable for all that expense. So can it be done? Yes. When we're really looking at the overall need, we really go to why did it close in the first place? It was used in, and I wasn't here, so I'm not the expert on this. I would defer to those who were. But the use was so low that it was way more expensive to just maintain the pool. You have to take readings in a pool every single day. You have to adjust chemicals every day. That's expensive. That requires a special staff person. That requires a special license to do that. And in that community, we just weren't seeing the use. I think the last 6 months it got used twice, and that was by outside groups. It was not by District 279. So that's why at the time the district made the decision to close the pool, just because the economics of it weren't there. And most of the use of all of our pools actually comes from our high schools, not our middle schools. So Brooklyn has one, high school's next to it. Osseo has one, high school's next to it. Maple Grove, that's the closest high school. It's not right there, but we make do. We don't have, swimming is not part of any of our FIED curriculum. So we don't have a mandatory, we have to have a pool for this outside of activities at the high school.
Okay, I'm wondering if adding a pool back to Northview would actually attract students, because that's one of those schools that is definitely under capacity. But I'll let any other people ask questions.
I actually have a couple questions about the pool situation as well. Could you just give us a little bit more context as to why the decision was made? And I know you might not be able to, maybe Kelly, I know you were here at the time when that decision was made. You were in the district.
Right, at Park Center.
Yeah, I don't know if you have if we have any of that kind of context. I'm just curious because my understanding is that I was serving on the board during that time, and I did not hear anything about controversy or concern or upset about us closing that pool. And obviously, we're hearing a lot of concern about it right now. And so I'm just curious, like, what was the situation then, and how has that changed?
Okay, so I'm going to lean on Dale Carlstrom, who's our Director of Transportation and Facility Operations, because he was part of that process and has been here a long time and is my personal historian for lots of things in the district, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, you don't get a raise for that title, by the way.
I guess I can give you my observations over time as to what happened at Northview. And right now, let's take it from a facilities perspective. Right now, that whole plant is in total disrepair, because we would need to go in and literally excavate the entire bottom of the pool, make it deeper, take all the piping out. The drain piping is scary looking. I mean, that's the only thing I can tell you. I mean, so we were looking at the sumps just a few months ago, trying to figure out what we were staring down. And it's the physical plant is in a great disarray. So, and not to mention the deck. The deck is, the concrete is rotting in the deck, and there's all kinds of other huge challenges in there. But getting back to the history of it, I think my coordinator, Jeff, came to me a few years ago and said, Dale, I don't know how to justify running the pool, because the energy that we're dumping into the pool and the lack of use of the pool is a significant draw on my budget, because here we've got tens of thousands of gallons of water we're heating, and the usage was so low, and we weren't using it, in the education process in the PE department. So we thought, well, let's talk with the staff about it. Let's talk with folks who are doing the curriculum and figure out what the issue is. And a lot of it had to do with staffing it and what was required for certified staff to, water safety people and so forth, and having that and a teacher in the pool at the same time. So we looked into, what would it take to shut the pool down until further notice? And so we shut the pool down for a while until we started looking at some of the mechanical of it and saying, well, we really can't kick it off again until we do some new renovations to the filtration system, to the pumps and that sort of thing. So, and the heater and, add on to that. So that whole piece of it from an economic perspective was not viable. So we were just looking into, well, what could we do in the short term? And there was some short-term fixes. We had a pool expert come and look at it, and he said, I really wouldn't. He was fine until he started looking at one part of it. And he said, the sump is just not something we can ignore. It's got to get done. So we end up taking up, the bottom of the swimming pool, and it was a difficult thing to try to say, well, if we're not going to open up the pool right away, how is that a priority? So.
From a perspective of sitting on the committee, we emphasize the use in curriculum for all of the assets and improvements that are in this plan. So for example, flexible furniture, that has a use with curriculum, with training. I asked a lot of questions about the outdoor classrooms, and I received a really strong education on how tied to curriculum that is. So to me, when we're talking about the pool, to me it's about the use in middle school curriculum and in PE. It sounds like we have enough pools to serve our high school sports needs, and this is not a curricular need, and that was one of the criteria that the board, which included principals of multiple schools, in reviewing that particular item. So to me, again, everything that we have in this, there's numerous items. I think we can strip out any one item and probe it, but it would be irresponsible to hold up moving this forward for any one item. I think there's items that we can debate and question and understand, but I think our responsibility is to do what is best for this district and the students within it, and that is to ensure that this moves forward with all of the improvements that have been vetted across the entire district, including a new facility. I would also add that ECMAC did study boundary changes 4 years ago or 3 years ago when we were looking at the Rice Lake addition. We studied those boundary changes and the negative impact that would have, and that was just for again, like you said, Heather, in the previous change, a small group of boundary changes. So at that time when ECMAC vetted it and said no to that, that's why we're here today. That's already been studied, and ECMAC had weighed in on that. I don't know if they weighed in again on this, but that came off the table because of ECMAC's input to that decision, the transportation impact, the length of bus rides. So that has been vetted in this process, which has taken many years.
Could we just talk a little bit about that transportation impact? I spoke with, North Star? Is that who does our busing? I can't remember. First student, well,
We do have some North Star.
thank you. Anyways, I spoke with them recently and learned that their state of employment and recruitment and retention is very similar to ours. They have perpetually open positions. We're all aware that there's a great shortage of bus drivers as well as ESPs to ride on the buses. Can you just talk a little bit about what potential impacts we would have to our transportation as it's already struggling if we were not to move forward?
So I talked a little bit with Troy Schreifels, who's the Director of Transportation, earlier today, and not moving forward would require us to increase the number of vehicles we currently have in order to, so if you think about it, once you start extending times of routes, so we're still moving the same number of kids. That's fairly easy to say, okay, that'd be the same. But we have 4 tiers of busing. And when you extend that, and we have a 40-minute window between each tier, and that is pick up, drop off, get to the next building in 40 minutes. So if we suddenly have routes that are running at 50, 65 minutes, now we're forced to change bell times. which you know that is a whole other gigantic fun conversation to have. So we'd have to either spread them out or else bring in more vehicles to not have to change bell times, because now we're running twice as many vehicles because now our buses can only run 2 tiers, while the other ones do 2 tiers because they overlap too much. So you potentially have the ability to almost double our transportation cost.
And right now, we've already stretched our transportation partners pretty much thin. We've reduced our routes and condensed them, right?
Yeah, and there isn't a day where we don't have a transportation need. Even today, there were 10 field trips that were requested that we couldn't fill because we just don't have buses for them. And that's an educational opportunity taken away from a kid because of a bus. You know, like, we need to solve that problem badly, so we're not doing that. You know, that's so think about how much worse that could be. You know, that's today, and that I'm embarrassed that happens, and that's, you know, frustrating, and I know our bus company they are trying their hardest. They are doing everything they can. They put every able-bodied person they have on the road, which actually puts them in violation of our contract because we require somebody to be at dispatch at all times. But we said, you know what, if that extra route matters, get them out there. So we're in a little bit of a catch-22. I think we called it a house of cards last year, and we did really well, but it's you know, year over year, it's really, really hard to fill those roles. And we're fighting to compete with, but you know, the company that's running in Robbinsdale that decided to crank their wages up, so we're losing drivers to them. And when I mean they moved them considerable versus the contract, and we're in the middle of a 5-year contract, so our bus company's tied. We're not gonna give them any more funding until our contract goes up, and they know they have to raise their own costs just to try to keep up and try to keep staff there. So, yeah, it's a big challenge.
Thank you for that context. As a parent in the district, my kids have faced lots of busing issues, so I am well aware of that, but I just wanted to bring that forward as another potential concern with not moving forward. Thank you.
John, I just want to make a comment about undercapacity schools. The numbers don't really tell the full story of an undercapacity school. So having teaching in an undercapacity school, currently, all those spaces do get used, and we do use compensatory money sometimes to buy down class sizes so that we do use those. So saying that we have X amount availability in one side of the district doesn't tell the whole picture of what that would mean. What that would mean is then schools that have been able to use those spaces for interventions and other things, including, you know, makeshift as a teacher, seeing our special ed students and teachers having to be in places that were built for 32 desks and a teacher desk, not, you know, a special ed program. I just, I'm concerned about not being able to have the facilities for our scholars in order for us to have true equity across the entire district, so that all of our scholars can have facilities that are the facilities they deserve, quite honestly. And I've been at the recipient of a failed bond referendum in a building where there was literally sewage coming up on the bottom floor, and the refurbishes that we finally got through, because we had to fight for our bond, is game changing. The behaviors are down. Kids feel like they're more important because of the facilities. Teachers are able to use the flexible learning spaces to make adaptations, to do individualized learning. I can't stress, as a teacher and an education career person of 35 years, that the things laid out, and it's a lengthy piece of document of all the things that we're hoping to do are important for our district. And I want to encourage anybody who's concerned about any one piece of this bond to look at the January work session materials. You know, grab your coffee and read our over 250-page document of all the individual things that is being recommended by hundreds of staff and community members on the committees like ECMAC and DPAC and REMAC and all the acronyms that you can possibly think of, and in every department area. I want to finally say that as someone who was here in the 2008 and when we got in the 2000 bond referendum, we didn't think that we would get that, but we did, and we were very grateful. It was the biggest bond we had asked for at the time. That's when we got Woodland. That's when we got Willow Lane. And I can tell you, as a teacher who was teaching in a closet, that with families, with little kids, Willow Lane was a game changer. And it's not a new building, but it was a repurposed building that allowed our staff to be unified instead of one. I was the only teacher at Weaver Lake for a while because we had one ECFE classroom at Weaver Lake, one ECFE classroom at Cedar Island, because they had the capacity at the time to shove us. And I can't tell you that, how important that is. And we can't just only think about K-12. We have to think about our entire district. That's my soapbox. I'm getting off.
And maybe I can just add to that. I think it was covered earlier, but a number of our schools that were built in the 1950s before special ed even existed. And those are the brick and mortar, like you can't move the walls very easily. We're finding ways to create things in spaces that weren't designed for it. As we've done our special ed audit, we're in a spot where our students with the greatest needs are in spaces that are not designed for optimal learning. And I know what the opportunity review is gonna say, here's your research-based practices and high-level instructional practices, but you need spaces to deliver that, to get better results. And I know we've done what we can. It's like a lot of districts, you try to make a space work for what it is. And I think of not just special education, but our EL services too, those individualized spaces, and think of how special has grown exponentially. It's going to continue across the metro. The numbers are up in child count. So there's a greater need, and if we take away those kinds of spaces due to boundary shifts, we're going to hear from more our staff saying, I don't have the the ability to provide the services that we are required to provide by law. So I've experienced that before in previous districts where you really have to be paying attention to that as you think about how we're repurposing buildings and looking at that. So I'm glad that, I know we talk a lot about a new school. To me, this is just as much about meeting the needs of kids that are really our most neediest. And they deserve the kind of instructional environments to optimize their learning as much as anything else. And we've really had to make do with what we've had for a really long time. And I commend our staff for doing so. But here's an opportunity. Here's an opportunity to do something different and become more of a destination location for families who need those extra supports. So I'll kind of stop saying my piece too.
Yeah, Director Brooks hasn't had any chance to speak yet.
Sorry.
So I want to make sure that he gets his chance.
Yeah, so I've been feeling like I'm falling apart all day, so I wrote it all down. But before I get to that, I did have a quick question from Director Grady's line of questioning. Do you know off the top of your head how many of our Brooklyn Park scholars are zoned for Maple Grove schools?
Well, how many total go to Maple Grove schools? I don't off the top of my head, but I know from a conversation with Lena how many Brooklyn Park scholars are at Weaver Lake. Isn't it like 52%?
Taking Weaver Lake out of it.
Oh, sorry.
From the east side.
From the east side, excuse me, thank you.
So I would be curious to know that number, taking Weaver Lake out of it, as well as that same question in the opposite direction, taking Brooklyn Middle out of it. I do want to thank Director, told you I'm falling apart.
Douglas.
Thank you.
I forgive you.
For the, the historical context, that newer board members wouldn't know. So that is helpful, and the fact that we were able to delay this does obviously allow us more time for discussion and questions. So while, reviewing the proposed LTFM and bonding proposal, I did have several questions and concerns that came up. I do first want to appreciate the members of ECMAC, the Oversight Task Force, board members and staff that have been deeply invested in this process through today. In addition to some of my concerns, I addressed some of the concerns raised by Northview Middle School staff that already came up as well. For starters, in an environment where residents just months ago were asked for multiple tax increases with inflation remaining high, I do not feel comfortable asking taxpayers, particularly those barely squeezing by, so soon for additional funding. A significant portion of the bonding referendum funding is going toward a new school building, as we've been talking about up to this point. Despite static enrollment across the district, a static or declining birth rate, as previously cited by staff in a meeting here, continued competition from charters and private schools in and around the area, and multiple school buildings in the district that are under enrollment capacity, as already mentioned. For a long time now, we have continued to wrestle with understaffing across the district, low wages for our ESPs, some of our most critical staff members, especially our nurses, and a district still trying to catch its bearings from the impact of the pandemic. So one of the questions I have there is, where are we going to get the staff from, especially when we're failing to pay ESPs a livable wage? It was mentioned today by a staff member, our Northview community was not adequately consulted regarding the change to the pool. So I would like to know how many parents, scholars, and staff members were engaged on the entirety of this plan from Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center. Additionally, I'd like to know the number of parents, scholars, and staff that were specifically engaged from the Northview community that have signed off on trading a refurbished pool for gymnastic space. And even more so, I'd like to know the demographic breakdown of participants. Until this information is provided and deemed adequate, I wouldn't feel comfortable proceeding. Additionally, I did not see an alternative proposal, including boundary changes, and I know Director Simons just mentioned why, but the option wasn't even provided, or an elementary addition to shift scholars and resources to undercapacity schools. And then lastly, I don't support the alleged divestment of resources that we've heard about in all of the emails that have come to us over the last few days, shifting resources from Brooklyn Park schools to be moved west. The district is already planning to reassign Crestview scholars to a new school and repurpose the building. Long term, I do question the amount of time before the next Brooklyn Park school is on the chopping block, with continued concerns around safety and achievement. If we want scholars on the east to return and stay in their neighborhood schools, we need to continue investing in those schools and the scholars and families within them. This statement is not intended to dismiss all of the LTFM investments that are in the proposal and already in progress. There are some items of importance to every parent across the district that I know the board would unanimously support. Particularly the safety and security of district buildings is an ongoing concern that both needs to be addressed and continually evaluated to ensure our safety and security is up to date with evolving market solutions that address this need. And then lastly, of course, the continued investment in our career and technical education pathway programming, which we work so hard on, which I think needs to be done in partnership with community resources, as community members and employers in and around the district are dependent on the success of our scholars in that program. For me, the easiest way isn't always the only way forward. So, with that said, I would like additional information before I would consider voting to approve the bonding referendum.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? You were asking specifically about the number of participants from specifically Brooklyn Park and then their racial and demographic backgrounds.
Specifically Northview.
I guess what I'm wondering is, how would that be beneficial to you? Like, what would that information tell you to help you make a decision?
I would like to know that they had a voice in these decisions that are impacting those scholars as well. Particularly something so small as a pool, to not have active engagement with those community members
Yeah.
I think speaks to a particularly larger issue that we've talked about so many times as a board. And so I think that's kind of the big question for me. Like, we've talked about over and over again the importance of engagement. And I'm not certain over the past 5 years the number of folks that have participated in ECMAC, the number of parents and scholars across the district, especially in the Brooklyns, that have participated in some of these decisions. And so I would just like to wrap my head around ways that we try to engage differently out in the community and not just keeping these decisions and the discussions around them internal.
So I totally agree with you on that, having diverse perspectives and engaging the community and specific school sites is super important. But the thing I'm having trouble wrapping my head around your concern is that these committees have been open to everybody for the last 5 years. Nobody has been barred from participation.
We've actually actively recruited.
Yeah.
Correct. And so that's where I'm kind of feeling like if people don't choose to participate, we can't control that.
Additionally, with the strategic plan, which also helped inform a lot of the committees and the work, we specifically went out, if you recall, to multiple locations that were outside the district to meet with constituents and to meet with community members. So I understand and appreciate the concern. I just am a little, I would just caution that we don't make assertions in that inquiry and curiosity. And I appreciate the curiosity and inquiry and desire.
So I do know that we actively recruit for all of our committees, which is something that we've also talked about. But I still can't help but wonder how we engage differently. So not just recruiting in a traditional way, but how many of those families actually know what we're doing here?
In some of the strategic parts of the work we did, we had people knocking on doors. So I just don't want to I want to be clear that the district has been really actively involved in doing that, and we can always do better, for sure.
And I think that's great, and I think whether it's this situation or going forward, if we are out knocking on doors and being creative with the way that we're engaging, I'd like to see some alignment between the feedback that we've received in those processes through this, and I'm not seeing
What would
the
that look like?
demographics, and I'm not sure, I think that maybe that's a work session discussion, but I'm not seeing, and I am concerned, especially when a staff member says that they consulted with multiple stakeholders and no one was aware of this.
Can I clarify the pool?
Yep.
So the question was brought up by a staff member at Northview, said, hey, how do we restart the pool? I went out, met with her and a couple other staff members there twice. Then I also engaged in a meeting with our district principal, who oversees our activities directors, and the activities directors. Never once did we say, hey, should we build a gymnastics gym? We said, what would you like with this space? Do you want a pool? Do you want a gym? You know, we let them throw out the ideas. The recommendation for gymnastics came from our activities staff. They're the ones that said, this is the biggest need because we have to put up and break down our gymnastics every single day we do it because we need the gym space to teach Phi Ed during the school day. So we can't necessarily leave it up. Sometimes curriculum will allow it, but not always. So we did engage, so unfortunately I don't feel like you're getting 100% of the most accurate information. Out of due respect, people's opinions are different and she may have felt that was different, that's okay. But we did engage with those people. They represented a survey and we shared that, and I believe the board has received that survey. That survey told us about half the district has an interest in a pool or in that area and about half don't. It's not compelling one way or the other. If it was 80%, sure, that's an easy decision. We put the pool back up and we don't worry about it. But if it's not, and it's hard to make the decisions to say, is this fiscally prudent to do this? Passion is passion, and I love it that people have it. You know, I will applaud Andrea 100 times out of 100 for that. But is it in the district's best interest to do that? And it's hard when we're looking from different lenses. That's her every day. That affects her. I'm looking from a very broad perspective across the whole district.
And I think that's exactly what I'm getting at. And so I do appreciate that context. If gymnastics is where we end up at the end of the day, because that's the best option for that community, great. But where, again, is the engagement from those outside of our internal staff? And so that's what I'm asking for. And I know you just mentioned the survey as well, but did we actually go out and talk to scholars? We actually go out and talk to families at Northview?
I would argue that our principals do that every day. They're paid leaders that you charge them to be experts in their field. So I'm looking at them sitting here. They're engaged with families and scholars on a daily basis, more than John or I or anyone else. They're on the Oversight Task Force Committee, brought those perspectives forward. I want to add to John's perspective, we have 150,000 residents. We have 3,000 staff. We might hear from 20 or 40 on any given item. There's 60 projects on this big ask. One of you, a couple of you said there's probably opposition to any one of those 60, right? And we're gonna lose opportunity by wrestling around with those. So that's the challenge we have, is what's the best plan that can meet the needs of the entire district? Knowing that any one of those projects, someone's not happy with it. And you charge us to be fiscally responsible and be sustainable with this as well. So that's the challenge of it not being perfect. But you don't wanna ask people for more money. Then your option is asking them, 14,000 students, to move to a new school. Those are your realities, and if we need to come up with new plans that take another year or two, you've lost that much more time, and it's gonna cost that much more money. So that's the dilemma we have, or the board you had to decide on. So the Rice Lake addition was $10 million to serve 600 plus students. Northview has an enrollment of 400. It's the same size as Cedar Island, Fair Oaks, and Palmer Lake. I don't think we'd put a pool in those schools. We don't have there's certain things in the district we don't put at every building. We'd love to. Trust me, we'd love to, right? So if you want to spend $15 million to fix a pool instead of 2.9, because that might be that much to dig that hole.
We don't know until we get in there is the problem. The rough estimate is 4.5.
Yeah.
But when we get down into that sewage sump underneath there and know that, I believe the concern was, as soon as we go to it, we have to replace the pipe, which means it's not just digging up under the pool, it's digging up that line all the way under the building, all the way till it connects to the street.
Yep.
And if that's the case,
Correct me.
that number doubles easy.
If it is, if that pipe is on Brooklyn Park property, for the street, we also have to pay for all that, right?
Potentially, yep. Then it can assess the people closest, or however the city does that.
This is helpful so we can give you more information. That's why we want you to be fully informed, because in the end, if you direct us to do that project, that's what we'll do, right? But we're obligated to make sure you know the implications of that one and any of the other 59, that the process brought forward to all of us, right? Because a lot of it, people who are experts in their field spent lots of time getting to this point, so.
I just have one final comment, if that's okay. I just wanted to say that as a board, I'm really thankful that we were able to come together in our hiring of our new superintendent, Dr. Kim Heil, who's here with us tonight. Thank you for being here. And I feel that this is one of those pivotal moments that we need to come together and continue to support our district in the best way that we can moving forward. And I believe that if we move forward with the bond referendum, it will also give Dr. Heil the best beginning to her career here, renewal of her career here, actually, because she used to be an assistant superintendent, but it'll give her the best footing to get started on here as we move forward. The backlash and the fallout of dealing with 14,000 families or more being outraged at our decision to change boundaries is, I don't think, something that any new superintendent should have to deal with.
There's, Director Brooks, you had mentioned in your comments a concern about shifting resources. I do want to, there is no shifting of resources from one area of the district to the other. So I just want to clarify that in this plan, as we've reviewed the financials, as we've reviewed the projects, there is not a shifting of resources from one direction of the district to the other side of the district. So we're really clear on that. And that there is significant investment taking place across the district, like Superintendent McIntyre specified, to ensure the best learning environments for all of our students. So we learned in our work session, and discussed this in our work session, in order to ensure a successful outcome, we need significant board support. And to Director Douglas' point, in order for this to be successful, this board needs to be as consensus-driven as it can be. Again, in the best interest, we've been speaking about this issue for multiple years now, and there's been no guidance to do any new work on this, new studies on it, new outreach on it up to this point. And so this is, we're right at the point where we need to make a decision, and to be considering needing a wealth of new study information would be very challenging. We did talk about this very clear and transparently in the operating and technology levy referendums to the community, that this is the next phase that's coming. So I feel really positive that we've been speaking about this with the community from that point in time. And once we go out and start sharing this again with the community, we'll get another wealth of information. Ultimately, the community as voters will decide on if they support this or not. My job as a board member, and I believe our job as board members, is to bring the best plan forward for submission to our community and let them be the decision makers on that ask and make the case.
John, can you remind me, what's the cost of the new elementary school in this bond, as a part of the bond? And what percentage of that is, let me ask it again. The total bond referendum is $250 million. What part of that is the new school, and what part of it goes across the district? What percentage-wise?
So just to clarify, when we originally tested the number, we tested 250. The actual number that will probably come is estimated at about 225 million, is what the bond request would be. Add 150 million for LTFM on top of that, so you're looking at about 375 million.
But the LTFM goes across the district, so I'm just
All of
asking
it
for
goes
what
across the
part.
district.
Yes, but what part of the bond money is just for the school?
Just that elementary is 16% of the grand total. It's 61 million is what the elementary is estimated to cost. So of the total projects out here that are all together, that 375, it's 16% of that.
Okay, and then what percentage of scholars in our district would be eligible for the new school? How many, or just what's the number of students that would be served in that school?
Building's built for 900, it'd be 900, right?
Yeah,
And it's gonna be
right now it's planned to
following
be
district
built for
policy.
1,026
If you
kids.
follow district policy, it's a neighborhood school. That's what the board policy requires. So that's meant to be able to meet the capacity demands of the growth in that part of the district, and thus if we don't do that, the shifting from site to site across the district. John, what would the new building cost, if you had to guess rough estimates, 3 years from now, 5 years from now?
So that's that 61 million, I think at its worst case scenario was in the 79 million range if we waited 2 years. And that's just using about 5% construction inflation in those out years. Originally, we had it higher because inflation was higher, but we were able to adjust it a little based on our, the engineers and consultants we use, their recommendations. And you gotta keep in mind with that bond, you're also adding capacity to Maple Grove Senior of between 500 and 600 more kids to be able to handle in that building. There are already 150 kids over. You know, we don't have enough seats for people to sit down to eat lunch. I think go to a lunch at Maple Grove, you'll see people lining the side eating because that's what we have space for. That's one of the initial problems. And then we have classrooms where we used to have locker banks because we just carved them out because we needed more space.
So,
one point that I think is maybe helpful in this is, so if you take the capacity piece out, if you say, okay, the addition to Maple Grove and that new school, and you set those aside, we're spending about 75 million as a total in Maple Grove for all other projects. We're spending 107 in Brooklyn Park, another 1.6 in Brooklyn Center, just because just the one elementary there is getting its improvements. And then I think the number is in the 30 millions, 33 or so for Osseo. That's the city breakdown. minus the capacity. So when you're talking everything we're trying to do that everybody gets, that's how that breaks down. And it
Chairman-
should. We have more buildings in Brooklyn Park. I mean, that's where the majority of the money should go.
Well, thank you for providing more information. There's more information that was provided previously. I still have really, well, first of all, let me say I'm 100% in support of the approval of the accelerated LTFM plan. I still have questions about the need and the fairness of the new school, on taxpayers. It's really hard to go referendum one after the next and the next year, when taxpayers are worried about inflation and property taxes increasing. I think it might be a mistake to go for it this year. I'm also concerned about the fiscal responsibility. I'm hearing from you all that there's a lot of unfunded mandates coming from the legislature right now, and I think it might be more prudent to let our financial situation resolve and settle from those changes before we commit to staffing a new school. And, I think, this issue of fairness across the district, Maple Grove gets a new school. And yes, there are a lot of facility improvements in all of the rest of the schools. But I think that, the optics are troubling for many. We're asking for the entire district to pay for Maple Grove to get a new school, and I find that problematic. So that's where I'm at right now with this. 100% in chart and happy with updating our schools and doing more things, but I am concerned about extending ourselves into a new school in Maple Grove.
Just to clarify, the LTFM will not move forward at a more accelerated pace if this bond referendum does not pass, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
But it's important to understand these things are all very interwoven. I can't just say, separate this and do that. Because if we take the bond out and say we don't ask that question, if I still move 150 million forward, that still raises people's taxes. So we're not gonna do that. If we're not going this way, we're not going that way either, because that wouldn't be a prudent decision, because there's no reason to raise people's taxes. We'll go back to the plan we had, which is when those improvements come in our 10-year plan, we'll get to them, because that's our other alternative. So those advancements or those things that you really want, they're in the plan. We'll get to them when we can afford to get to them.
Another example that might help the board is, I'm seeing Principal Manette here. Once the remodeling at Brooklyn Middle's done, it'll feel like a brand-new school. So will many other buildings. So I think that's the story we need to tell people, because that's the truth. Like, you're gonna walk in that building and it won't look like what it did before. So sure, there's new walls being built in a new school, but many of our schools will basically be new schools in the same location. Instead of tearing it down to the ground, we can use what's there and improve upon it. So there's many buildings I think will feel like completely new schools. And if, maybe there's follow-up information we can share to help tell that story, because I think there's some perceptions like that are, the Oversight Task Force Group has wrestled with, and we need to visually tell that story. Like, that'd be part of the campaign, right? If we go for a vote, we gotta visually show what that would look like. You all saw what Rice Lake looks like, very different, right? In an existing building, feels like a different school. So those are the stories we would get to, and we would be able to provide that kind of visual evidence on what would be coming.
I think it's just extremely important to clarify that Maple Grove getting a new school is not because Maple Grove is better or whatever their demographics are. It's because there is a need in Maple Grove. That it's outrageous to even insinuate that Maple Grove, and you can sit there and smirk and snicker. I mean, seriously, you're so ridiculous. Okay.
Take a breath.
I don't need to call point of order for this, do I?
Point of order.
Okay, thank you.
Let's take a deep breath, everybody.
So I might, this is exactly why, Chair Mosqueda Jones, I appreciate the recommendation to continue to offer the opportunity for board members to ask any questions, get the answers they need for us to come to consensus. But the fact of the matter is, this board unanimously approved a strategic plan
this is aligned with that strategic plan. This board unanimously selected a new superintendent. We must resource the strategic plan that we, on a unanimous vote, approved, and we must make our new superintendent be set up for success. And I'll conclude with those remarks, and with that, I'll move to closed discussion.
Just one more comment. Superintendent McIntyre, to your point, it would be helpful to be able to visualize all the changes across the district versus the listed format that it's currently in. And I know that there were some pictures included too, which was great, but it would be helpful to get excited about supporting this if we were able to visualize it.
Yeah, I think that's the way it'll go, if you decide to go for it. People gotta see and feel what would be different. Right, so we'll figure out.
And we know we've had conversations about the potential informational plan, and we would show at every building, this is exactly what this building is getting. Now, some of the examples like Brooklyn Middle, I don't have a rendering of that yet, but we're getting really close because we started them early. If you're talking about a new elementary, we don't have a clue what that's gonna look like. You know, if you're talking about the entire second floor of Park Center and the media center, I don't know what that's gonna look like. I can give you ideas of what a new modern media center looks like, and that's where those pictures come into play. But we'll absolutely put that information there to say, this is one piece of what Park Center is getting. Here's new furniture, that's what they're getting. ABC, and then we'll go over to the next school and say, these are the 5, 6 things you're getting. In this school, these are the 5 things you're getting. Everybody's getting at least 5 major components, every single building. So, but we want to show that because that tells a story. And it's a great point. It's certainly better than the list. I hate the list, so. Pictures are a better deal.
I'm gonna say we're gonna move on from this. What I do wanna say is, we will bring this most likely to a vote, either at a special, meeting right before our work session on May 16th, or at our next regular school board meeting. This gives us a chance to all, reflect on all the pieces that we have questions about. I want to make sure that we're respectful with each other and how we're talking about the needs of the district. There are perceptions that we've been dealing with for most of my time here since 1978 that I understand, and we need to look at what's best for the entire district. One more time say, I can't tell you how much my building, which is not a new building, feels like a new building with the renovations. And with that, we are moving on to our monitoring report to strategic direction B, number 4 in our 5 scorecards. It will be, this information will be shared by Brian Bass, Assistant Superintendent of Equity and Achievement, and Robin Gonzalez, Director of Learning Achievement. Does everybody feel good with going forward, or do we need a breather? We're good? Okay, let's go forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Chair Mosqueda Jones, Vice Chair Simons, members of the board, Superintendent McIntyre. Thank you for the opportunity to share our 4th vision card, which is for Strategic Direction B. It's working. It wasn't working earlier. It's working. School board members will receive information on baseline data for the high priority initiatives for Strategic Direction B, and will also understand the alignment of the operational plan to the vision card data collection. As a reminder, vision cards serve as critical data points toward the realization of the desired daily experience for our students, staff, and families. Strategic Direction B states to build and nurture a culture of achievement by providing content-rich, rigorous, and individualized pathways. We have 5 indicators that we're using to measure Strategic Direction B: instruction and management review, dropout prevention review, classroom climate and respect, culture of achievement, and graduation, continuation, and IEP-based diplomas. I also wanted to offer the definition statement for Strategic Direction B. A culture of excellence leverages instructional strategies that adapt to diverse learning styles. Educators provide supportive and aligned curriculum that prepares scholars for rigorous yet responsive, independent learning throughout their academic pursuits through an asset-based lens. There are two mindful, critical questions that we're looking at for this vision card. First, how might we ensure we have engaged and considered multiple perspectives that are inclusive and representative of the interests of the community we serve? And then our second question is, how will this course, program, or initiative provide the skills and knowledge necessary for each scholar to reach their goals for the future, and how do we know? So Robin will come up and share, and the data you'll see aligns to our ability to answer these two questions. The initiatives that relate to the metrics that we're sharing this evening are from learning work, our program improvement process, which includes 4 different areas in English language arts, elementary and secondary, at social studies, at the secondary level, health, K through 12, and then science, our earth systems curriculum. They're all in learning work, piloting that this year. In implementation work, we have implementation happening for our science curriculum at the elementary level, as well as 8th grade year 1 of implementation, and then we have physics, chemistry, and secondary math. In addition to our program improvement process and implementation work, we have our system-wide equity tools and training. We have our special education opportunity review action plan, which will be a result of our partnership with the Carey group this spring. And then our last item is the multi-tier systems of supports for academics. All right, Robin will take over the data piece.
So as we have been reporting on metrics aligned to strategic directions this year, we've talked about the 3 levels of data. And most of the data that we've shown you through the vision cards has been that really high level satellite data. In this vision card, with Strategic Direction B, we're getting a little bit closer to the map data because we're starting to look at specific student groups and programs that are happening across the system, but the numbers are quite small. And as we bring this data and share this information with sites, they can go even deeper and get into some of those, some of the street data so that we can make really programming decisions that will affect students' educational lives. There are 2 metrics as part of indicator B1, and it's instruction and management review. And both of the metrics are around staff development and engagement. And they're both process indicators, meaning that they talk about adult actions that we know will impact student learning. So both indicators, as I said, are about teacher engagement in professional learning. The first one speaks to system professional learning days, and those are those days where the whole district gets together to learn about new curriculum, instructional practices, and of course how they're aligned to the strategic directions. I need to take a breath. The second indicator is about our monthly system staff development that happens each month at each site across our system. When we look at the data that we have, I should go back, I'm gonna go back one moment, please. So we have 89%, it's an average at our system professional development days, so 89% of teachers are engaging. And then in the system monthly learning participation, it's 59% of teachers are engaging. And when we break that up by elementary and secondary, we can go a little bit deeper and talk about on the system days, 90% and 89% at secondary, 90% at elementary and 89% at secondary. And then looking deeper at our monthly meetings, we have 60% at elementary and 53% at secondary. So I'm going to move forward. Indicator B2 is also a process indicator, And this is, it's called the Dropout Prevention Review. And it's based on Dropout Prevention Practice Guide from What Works Clearinghouse within the Institute of Educational Sciences. The Dropout Prevention Guide contains evidence-based recommendations for reducing the dropout rate and increasing graduation rates. The Dropout Prevention Review was developed as part of Vision Card process. So, and it was administrated for the first time at our secondary schools through the equity teams. For each of our secondary schools, a recorder provided equity team responses on behalf of the site. Thank you. This new instrument yields 3 scale scores ranging from 0.56 to 0.79. And you can see that there are 3 areas. Here are the 3 areas. Monitoring student progress is a 0.79, and so the closer you get to a 1.0 is the best indicator, so we're moving up. Intensive individualized student support is a 0.56, and engaging students and helping them manage challenges is a 0.73. And as we said, this was self-reported based on the questions that fall underneath each of the scales. That helps. The data source for indicator B3, Classroom Climate and Respect, is the Family Stakeholder Survey, and the scale was Culture of Achievement. The survey was conducted in the spring of 2022. A randomly stratified sample of families with children enrolled in the district was used, and 949 families responded. To arrive at the 77% reported on this vision card, responses by survey item were segmented by race, ethnicity, student service group, gender, and grade level. Next, an average across all scale questions was calculated within each group. And finally, the median percentage of all groups is what was reported at 77%. And the method of calculation was used to ensure that no particular group was more heavily weighted than another. On the next slide, we can see the questions that were asked and the percentage of responses. And the percentage of responses is the people that answered often or always. And as we look through that, we can see that staff effectively communicate with my scholar was at 81%, and the other highest was staff believe my scholar can succeed, with the lowest response being staff know my scholar's interest. Our next indicator is B4, and that's the culture of achievement. And this is very different data than we've ever looked at in this way before. And one of the things that's unique about it, because it's really specific to some of our small groups that other districts we don't report on this publicly out, it's really hard to compare ourselves to other districts in this area. So the achievement index was the first indicator. And the percent of students achieving at least one of the following. And these are things that students choose to do. They don't just get put in them. They can actually engage in it and look for these opportunities. And so post-secondary, which are PSEO classes, concurrent, articulated, that's where they can go on to earn a certification, to go on like a CTE pathway. AP, IB, HP courses, or earning a professional certification like CPR, EMT, EMR. The completing an internship, apprenticeship, or related experience, or earning a language seal. And as we talked about before, we don't know all of the people that are involved in internships. These are just people that have reported to us. In this metric, each student was counted one time, regardless of how many of these 4 items they achieved. A total of 59% of our students enrolled during the 2021-22 school year had achieved at least one of the 4 measures of the index. These particular measures were chosen as they are inclusive of a variety of pathways for students to show college and career readiness. The next measure is a very different measure, one that we've never looked at across our system to my knowledge. So I'm kind of excited to share this and really think about what it means for kids. because this gives them an opportunity to go on and enter college with really some credits behind them. So the 12 by 12, and this has come out of research that Jenna Onshoy has done, John Choi has done, percentage of students earning at least 12 credits by grade 12 that could lead to college credit. So to be considered on track, a 9th grader would have earned 3, a 10th grader would have earned 6 credits, an 11th grader would have earned 9, and a 12th grader would have earned 12. And that does, so if you're at 12th grade and you have done 12, no matter what your years, you're considered that you have been achieving that. A total of 11% of students were either on track or had earned 12 credits by the end of their 12th grade year. The next chart shows that first index, the achievement index by race and ethnicity. And as you can see, the data was desegregated, and the data shows that the groups with the highest rates of achievement were students identifying as white and speaking English as their home language at 71%, students identifying as white and speaking a language other than English at home, and that was 69%, and students identifying as Asian and speaking Vietnamese in their home at 68%. Additionally, we can see that there are 6 student groups that are higher than the district rate of 59%. The next chart shows the 12 by 12 metric, and it desegregated by race and ethnicity. The student groups that had the highest rates of being on track for meeting the requirements of this metric were students who identified as Asian and speak English as their home language, and that was 19%, and students who identify as Asian and speak a language other than English, Hmong or Vietnamese, in their home, and that was 19%. And students who identify as white and speak a language other than English at 18%. On this metric, there were 8 student groups that performed higher than the district rate of 11%. The next indicator, B5, we have 4 student outcomes. Each of these measures focuses on graduation, continuation, or dropout rates for students in the class of 2021. Just today, the class of 2022 data was released publicly, so we are working on creating that information for you right now. Data for each of the measures, we are using the percent of groups reaching benchmarks. So when you look at the scale, what we know for the first graduation continuation rate is 60% of the groups that were disaggregated met the goal of 80% or more students graduating in 4 years in high school. So that's how this data goes. And you can see our range goes from 18 to 60%. And so we've looked at graduation and continuation rates, 4-year dropout rates for special education, for students receiving special education services, 9 non-IEP graduation rates for students receiving services for special education, and percent of continuing students receiving IEP diplomas. So we're looking at it in a variety of ways. The first graph here, this is the first part of a 3-slide graph. So know that this is just the very beginning. The graduation or continuation rate refers to students graduating in 4 years or continuing on in a 5th year. We're looking at the first 3 slides of the results. Here we can see graduation or continuation rates of 90% or more for 10 groups of students in the class of 2020 and 6 groups in the class of 2021. These results are shown in blue, so the ones that are meeting. In addition, there were 7 groups in 2020 and 6 in 2021 that met the benchmark of 80%, shown in green. And this is the second part of that top slide. In the second slide of these results, we can see that, again, most groups met or exceeded the benchmark of 80% graduating or continuing, with the results in blue and green. And the last of the slides in this group is the graduation and continuation rate. At the bottom of the scale, we can see the percent of student groups across the 3 slides with 80% or more students graduating in 4 years or continuing on for a 5th year. And so this was the value that you saw for the first indicator on B5. The second indicator is the four-year dropout rates for students receiving special education services, and the goal for this is 0, right? We don't want anyone to drop out, so that's what we're looking at. So in order to drill down in this data, we calculated the four-year dropout rates for students receiving special education services. This table breaks down the dropout rates by race, program, and gender within students receiving special education. We can see differences in rates from year to year as well as between groups. And as we look at our groups too, you can see that some of the groups are very small, so we would expect the numbers to vary quite a bit. This is the second part of that same slide. After reviewing the data from both classes for students receiving special education services, the four-year dropout rate benchmark was set at 0, meaning we don't want anyone to drop out. In the margins of the table, the calculations are shown so that you can see the class of 2021 groups reaching the benchmark of 0%. There were 3 out of 17, so that's 18%. As we go forward, the next graph shows the non-IEP graduation rates for students receiving special education. And this is important to pay attention to because we want our students to graduate with a standard diploma if they are able to. And if they aren't able to, we want them to go on and continue to get their diploma. And this graph that you can see that our goal for the benchmark was set at 60, and that was based on group values, 60%. And 5 of the 9 groups, or 56%, were green because they reached the benchmark. And as we said earlier, because the group sizes are very small, such as 3, we're going to see variation, but we want it to keep continuing in that general direction over time. And one of the goals that we have as we look at this is we want students in the least restrictive environment. We want students to have access to grade level standards. Here we see the transition to our fourth measure, indicator B5, which is the percent of continuing students receiving IEP-based diplomas. And this is a different group of students and they have on their IEPs, they have this as part of their IEPs. So what they're meeting are their IEP standards. So looking at the 2 most recent graduating classes, there has been an increase in the number of students receiving special education services continuing past their 4th year from 48 to 52, as well as an increase in the percentage of these students continuing who eventually earn an IEP-based diploma from 25% to 40%. So our next steps. I'm very excited about this data, as I said before, because I think this data really speaks to the support, opportunities, and experiences that we provide our scholars. And by getting down even a little bit closer to the map data, we can look at how we're programming and really plan to increase the numbers of students graduating on time, students graduating with standard diplomas, and really supporting those students who are choosing to engage in PSEO classes or earn college credit before they leave high school. So I think that this helps us dig a little bit deeper into what we want our daily experience for our scholars to be and what we hold as a profile for our graduates of Osseo area schools. We're going to continue to look at the data we're selecting and continue to make the best decisions about how we match and align the data to the strategic direction so that what we're doing is really transparent and we can use it to make decisions in programming and help our students become more successful and achieve their dreams.
So board members, in follow-up to last week's work session, a couple of things I want to stress that you keep in mind, and thank you to the team for now the 4th time trying to create measures that are more responsive to instructional practice. We have lots of data from the state and federal level that we don't always think is really responsive, and when we change our teaching and learning efforts, we try to pick measures that will show improvement, or, if it's not working as well, be sensitive to those changes. And also, big picture, getting as a board into the rhythm of about every other month, you're gonna keep getting data. So as you move into next, you'll get the last vision card in June. Then next year, again, this is baseline this year, so I commend the team for just establishing, here's our starting point. Next year, you're gonna get year one data about every other month. Vision cards E, D, C, B, and then A. It goes in reverse order because that's when the data is available to us. So I just want to say thank you to the team, and we're going to learn a lot. You might see some modifications and changes as we learn more and get better. We'll do better. It's a great starting point, and I think, Robin, you said you're excited because we believe it's just going to be more, again, more responsive to the practices we have in the classroom. And if we get data that suggests something's working, we keep going. If something's not working, we make changes, right? So versus a lot of the other data we tend to have as really lagging indicators. So with that, maybe turn over to any comments or questions the board has.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Dr. Bass?
I might have stolen Brian's comments. I don't know, maybe I did.
I just have a comment, no questions. Thank you for this report. I know we've talked for a long time about finding alternative ways to measure achievement. And this is such a clear alternative measurement of achievement and outcomes. So I think one of the things I particularly liked in the beginning of the presentation is that balance of measuring and setting goals for setting scholars up for success in a post-secondary environment. But also balancing that with trades and certifications and some of those more practical methods for scholars that don't want to take on all that debt or go through another 4 years of school or any of those. So I'm excited about this scorecard, and I definitely want to see more. So thank you.
I would just like to say, again, I'm going to pitch my pitch again. You guys have heard it, but I don't know how many times the public has heard it, that I love this, and I love that it highlights areas that we have some real areas that we can grow in, we can make progress and benefit our students. One of those areas that I would really love to see is individualized high school planning for our scholars before they reach high school, so that they have a clear plan of what they intend to do, of course, with regular check-ins to make sure that they're staying on track, and if their plans or ideas change, that we're able to help them change course. And then the other thing is that, and Thomas, I'm just gonna say this for your benefit because you weren't at the work session. We discussed internships and how they can impact some of these outcomes. And one thing I would really like us to do is track internships in a more intentional way so that students can potentially receive additional credit for participating in internships. So that's all. Thank you, guys.
Again, thank you, and I made a lot of comments at the work session, so I won't repeat those. But I think this is spot on. That helps us to continue to refine our operational plans, and as was mentioned, align all of the different levers that are underneath the metrics, and just really set the right spotlight on the right information for us to then make improvements against. So I really appreciate it.
Dr. Grady?
Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate your work.
Director Mitchell?
Yeah, nothing additional, just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next agenda item is the consent agenda. I also want to say thank you because I didn't get a chance to say thank you and I wasn't at the work session, so I love the scorecard. That's my quick one. Board members, are there any items that you would like to remove for separate consideration on the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed?
So moved.
Moved by Tanya Simons. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Thomas Brooks. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passes 6-0. All right, we do have an action item here. Our first action item this evening is approval of the United Healthcare, United Medical Resources, and Delta Dental Insurance premiums effective July 1st, 2023. Information will be shared by Laurel Anderson, Executive Director of Human Resources. Laurel.
Good evening, Chair Mosqueda Jones, school board members, Superintendent McIntyre. On the agenda this evening for school board action is a recommendation for approval for rate increases for the United Healthcare, United Medical Resources, previously Preferred 1, health insurance premiums effective July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 for the non-education Minnesota employee groups. Based on our reserve fund balance, plan usage rates, and our continued priority of building and maintaining a strong fund reserve balance, we're recommending an overall 6% increase to our monthly premiums for the fiscal year 2023-2024. The proposal includes a stop-loss insurance cap of 15% for year 2, a fee guarantee for the next 2 years, and the district will retain any pharmacy rebates. Specific percentage increases to our monthly premiums are based on individual plan design, whether it's the high plan, the value plan, or the HSA, and those specific rates are outlined in the memo in your board packet. For our Delta Dental Insurance, that is our self-insured plan for all contract groups. With our consultant, we've been monitoring our reserve funds. Due to increased trend costs and increased employee enrollment, we're recommending an overall 5% increase to the premiums. This increase does not affect the district budget unless contract groups negotiate new district contributions. The increase will be captured by employee and retiree premium increases. School board members, you've had an opportunity to review the proposed rate, ask questions, and to consider financial implications. It is the superintendent's and my recommendation that you approve the United Healthcare, United Medical Resources, and Delta Dental Insurance renewal rates presented to you this evening.
With that, is there a motion to approve the United Healthcare, United Medical Resources, and Delta Dental Insurance premiums effective July 1st, 2023?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Director Brooks. Boy, considering your voice, I'm so sorry. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Mitchell. Is there any discussion? As always, we wish we didn't have to raise in premiums, right? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes 6-0. The next action item is approval of an individual employment contract between the ISD 279 School Board and Amy Moore, District General Counsel. Information will be shared by Laurel. Laurel?
Good evening. Again, on the agenda this evening for school board action is a recommendation for approval of the general counsel contract effective July 1, 2023. Amy Moore will serve as the district general counsel during the term of this contract. The individual contract contains outlines terms and conditions of employment, and her employment is considered at will. The agreement contains language similar to that of the previous general counsel, with the understanding that the contract will be negotiated during the 2023-2024 school year under the parameters given by the school board. Again, it's the superintendent's and my recommendation that you approve the general counsel contract presented to you this evening.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the employment contract between ISD 279 School Board and Amy Moore, District General Counsel?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Tanya Simon, seconded by Heather Douglas. Is there any discussion?
I would just offer board, you're very fortunate to have such a strong candidate in Amy. We love Tim, but you got a great one here, so be excited.
Thank you.
I would like to say that when the information was out, I got several texts from people saying that we're very lucky to have her, and we're sad that you're taking her from Minneapolis. So with that, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 6-0. And as always, our favorite action item is our final action item, gifts to the district. Is there a motion to approve gifts to the district totaling $196,000, $408.18?
So moved.
So moved by Director Douglas. Okay, second?
Second.
Second by Director Mitchell. Is there any discussion? All in unison, thank you.
It's amazing.
It's impressive, very impressive.
Thank you for making me say such a big number. I'm very excited about it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes 6-0. There being no further business this evening, so that some of us who are not feeling well can get home and rest, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:31 p.m.?
So moved.
So moved by Director Brooks, who needs some sleep. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Douglas. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes 6-0, and the meeting is now adjourned at 9:32 p.m.
And the eggs are done. And the eggs are done.
Yeah, we have the
10
chill.
times over.